For some reason. That's the only reason.
We're recording now.
Okay. No, I like the P. with no context, that probably sounds quite funny. GoPro, start recording. There we are. Yeah, saying I like the P with no background context, that probably sounds kind of funny.
It does.
Okay, so we're recording, you're recording, I'm recording. For my listeners, can you introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, I'm Josh Blüm. I'm here with Jeremy P. McGhee for the Trail Effect podcast.
Trail Effect.
Trail Effect, spelled Eaffect.
I saw that and I was like, wait, I'm going to have you say it because I don't know how to pronounce it.
Well, there's a debate when I had a different podcast before this podcast called Driftless Earth that was centered on the region where I live, which is the Driftless region, and which is southwest Wisconsin, northwest Illinois, and northeast Iowa, and southeast Minnesota. And when COVID happened, I'm like, this whole virtual thing, like virtual recording is more of a thing. And I actually want to, I had just done a 5-part series on Bentonville, and Bentonville isn't in the Driftless area. And so I'm like, well, how do I change this to something that I can go national with? Right.
There you go.
And so I'm like, well, like lake effect snow affects communities. And like the trail effect, like trails affect communities in a very positive way. And I was actually on the phone with Mike Repiak from IMBA, and I'm like, well, should we spell it with an E or spell it with an A? And he's like, well, I guess it could be both. And I'm like, yeah, I think it's more E though. I'm like, well, screw it. We'll just do E and A, which is a huge marketing fail. Because nobody can find it. But I figured it's unique.
Searchability though.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, that's what I thought. It's a play on affect and effect.
Correct.
Okay. And then linguistically, I always struggle with the difference. Because you can use affect as a verb. It can be used as a verb. It's not just a noun.
Correct.
Right? And I try to use it in that way sometimes, but I don't know if I always get it correct.
Yes. So I just said, I pronounce it as effect with the E and the A is silent.
Okay. I think that's super clever. I think it's awesome. Okay, so everybody, we are in my driveway in Bentonville. In my van. Josh and I met during the Professional Trail Builders Association conference that was this week in Bentonville. And I don't have anything in my house, and I have concrete floors. It's super echoey, so the sound is just terrible. So we decided to sit up here in my van, which I think is kind of cool, actually. I haven't hung out in the van I got here, been here for about a week and a half, so I haven't hung out in the van for like a week and a half, so this is nice.
Yeah, hashtag van life.
This is van life. This is it.
Yeah. So we're here to learn about you and everything you do and are doing for the trails community. But before we get to that, let's learn about what makes you tick in your backstory.
Oh, what makes me tick?
Let's learn about Jeremy P. McGhee
the
listeners.
Don't forget the P. I like the P.
I
know. Josh was asking me like, "What's the deal with the P?" I'm like, "There's no reason other than I just like it better. I don't. It's really. You know what? You know what? Actually, how it did start when I signed up for my first credit card when I was, I think I was 19 years old in college.
Yeah, they sold it to you in the college commons area.
Exactly. They all come out. Oh my god, dude. Well, I used that card to travel the world, but the person
it
told
just recently got paid off.
Yeah, right. The person told me that I guess it's better security wise to use your middle initial or your middle name on your name that's on your card. So I was like, okay, just put my middle initial, and that's kind of how it first started.
It makes sense.
And it just has grown on me.
I just didn't know if there was a lot of Jeremy McGhees and you want to differentiate yourself from the rest of the Jeremy McGhees in the world.
Well, there's a lot of McGhees. I mean, that's where the whole Tits McGhee came from, because McGhee's the most common name ever. So you're like Tits McGhee, or you're common, and then nobody knows that there's an H in the beginning.
Yeah, there is an H. It is GH.
It's GH. That's what makes it uncommon. But so, God, what makes me tick and what's my backstory? I guess my backstory is I grew up in San Diego. Everything was outdoors. I didn't really have any parenting.
I can relate to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much zero parenting. Dad was out of the picture at a young age. Mom just worked a ton and was marshmallow anyway, so there was zero discipline whatsoever. Um, I have an older sister, but she lived with our dad and a younger brother who's 14 months younger. So it was just like me and him just tromping through the canyon and skateboarding and getting poison oak every day and staining our clothes with ice plant. You probably don't even know what ice plant is, do you?
Living from Wisconsin, I don't know what ice plant is, which is probably strange, but I definitely don't know what ice plant is.
It's the succulent that they like plant on the side of highways everywhere because it just grows like crazy. Needs very little water, doesn't need any water, and just grows everywhere out there. But we would find patches of it and like skateboard like downhill into it and fly off our boards into these ice plant fields, and it totally stained your clothes.
That doesn't sound fun.
It's totally fun.
Yeah. So you also grew up surfing too, right?
Yeah, I started surfing at a young age. My I can't remember who got the surfboard first. I think it was my brother, and we traded like some GI Joes and a skateboard for the surfboard, and we shared the surfboard. And we would bike to the beach. The beach was about 6.5 miles from our home. We lived like inland in suburbia, and we would bike 6.5 miles as little kids. I think I was probably, I want to say 11 or 12 when we made the trade for the surfboard. And we had boogie boards before that, so we were always boogie boarding. And then we're like, okay, we want to start surfing. So we would bike to the beach with our one surfboard and one boogie board and like trade off.
Yeah.
And then sometimes our mom would drop us off at the beach on our way to work, or pick us up on the way back. And she had a little hatchback Toyota Corolla, and she'd have to fit both of our bikes, surfboard, boogie board, both of us, and shove us into this tiny little like 2-seater hatchback car. That was pretty funny. We'd wait for her on the side of the highway and wave her down as she drove by.
Well, you mentioned college. Where'd you go to college at, or what'd you go to school for?
I went to a small Christian school on the beach in San Diego.
More surfing?
More surfing, yes. And it was just kind of by default that I ended up there. You know, I didn't really have any direction at all. You know, I was going to like youth group at the time. I had my youth group leader who kind of became an older brother and took me under his wing, and I had some direction from him, and he went there. So it was kind of all I knew. I was like, okay, I'll just apply, and like just like got my application in like right at the deadline.
Yeah.
I didn't even think like, oh, how do I apply for college? And no one said anything to me whatsoever. So I applied and I got accepted, and that's where I went. And it was like 4-year church camp on the beach. It was insane. It was an insane experience. I mean, my stories from college, I didn't drink a drop of alcohol, and my stories like from college like are crazier than anybody like that I talked to about college that even partied their asses off. Like we were just wacko doing crazy stuff, you know, surfing in the middle of the night and all kinds of stuff. And yeah, I surfed my ass off. I surfed every day, multiple times a day. I graduated high school with a 4.0 Scholastic Scholarship, college credit already from AP classes, and actually the local community college offered a calculus class my senior year at my high school, so I took that and that was college class. So I had credit already, and dude, I barely graduated college. Barely. I think I graduated with a 2.7.
I can relate to that too. Although I was the one that was out drinking.
Yeah. But all I wanted to do was just like surf and like have fun and do crazy weird stuff. And I remember my freshman year, my RA, he was a pro surfer actually. Brian Jennings, for those of you that know the surfing world, probably know that name. I had philosophy class as a freshman, which you're not supposed to take. As a freshman, they don't let freshmen in that class. But somehow I was in this philosophy class. It was all sophomores. He was a sophomore. And there was this paper due. And I really struggled with philosophy. It just really seemed like a waste of time to me, and still kind of does. But I was really struggling, and we had this paper to write. I remember it being like 6 or 8 pages, and I'd never written a paper that long before. And it was due the next day, and I went to his room, and I asked him, like, what are you going to do for this paper? And he's like, I'm not going to write it. I'm going to do it. And I was shocked. I'd never not done my homework ever in my entire life. And the concept was shocking to me. And I was like, what do you mean you're not going to write it? He's like, I don't want to. I don't need to. All you have to do is get a D and you pass the class. And if you get all D's, like you pass college, you graduate. I mean, I was like, really? You can just like pick and choose what papers you want to write or not write and just kind of get by? He's like, yeah, why not? I was like, okay, I'm not going to write it either. And that just kind of started a mentality the rest of my college career. And then I was also delivering pizzas at the time, and for a local pizza place nearby. And I would listen to news radio as I was delivering pizzas. Totally weird that I would do that. And they were interviewing this man that just turned 100. And they asked him the typical question that you want to know from someone who's that age, like, what do you have any regrets? Is there anything you would have done differently? His answer, I will never forget it. And he answered immediately. Like, he was clear and decisive with his answer. And he said, I would have gotten worse grades in college. I was like, okay, that's it. I'm just going to have a good time.
Your whole mentality just completely shifted from high school into college, from your RA and a 100-year-old man you heard on the radio.
That's it. Yes. I mean, I was, 18 years old, probably. I was so just, I was the opposite of influential. I was influenced very easily. What's the word for that? I was an influencee.
Impressionable.
I don't know. Very impressionable. Like, I just very gullible comes along with that. Like, whatever you say, I just believe you and trust you. And
yeah. So in that, did you, we're here in Bentonville, the mountain bike capital of the world.
Yeah.
Did you mountain bike at all at that age, or were you just full on beach bum?
No. Surfing was my only sport other than, fitness.
Okay.
I was really into fitness at the time, and not just fitness pizza in my mouth type of fitness.
Yeah, like going to the gym and making sure you're running.
Yeah, I was I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wasn't sure of that yet. I studied literature because I thought I wanted to be an English teacher, but I didn't really want to be an English teacher. I wanted to be a football coach. I grew up playing football and I really love football, and I had this vision of being a coach. And then I was like, okay, what's the funnest? You got to be a teacher if you're going to be a coach at the school, right? I was like, okay, what's the funnest teacher? Oh, English teachers are pretty cool. I guess I'll be an English teacher, although I was way better at math than I was at English anyways. Didn't really I read, but not like a real literature major. Someone who's interested in literature does,
Yeah, you could have broke the mold and been a cool math teacher.
Yeah, right? I actually had a really cool math teacher. My geometry teacher in high school was really cool. We had a really cool relationship, and he definitely broke the mold. Let's just say that.
That's good.
Yeah. He was one of my favorite teachers ever. Mr. Sandlin, if you're still around, you're awesome.
And you're listening to the Trail Effect podcast or Jeremy McGhee's podcast on YouTube.
Yeah. So but I had to. I was thinking at that time now that I was going to be a career lifeguard. I was kind of going in that direction, or some type of rescue emergency response.
Yeah,
career.
like even like Coast Guard or something.
I was almost in the Coast Guard. Actually, I was almost in the Coast Guard, and I was almost went into Buds to be a Navy SEAL,
which is like literally right across the bay from you.
Yeah. So
in Coronado.
At the time, I was working as a pool lifeguard at the Point Loma submarine base, and the Coast Guard guys and the SEALs worked out there a lot because they were located just across the bay, like you said. So they would come work out and lived in that area, a lot of them. And so I got to know them, and I started partying with those guys. And separately, there were two separate groups, the SEALs and the Coast Guard guys. I was kind of leaning more towards Coast Guard. And at the very same time, I was in the recruiting office for both. And I had the paperwork and everything to sign for both. And I don't know, I just got this weird feeling. I don't know if it was nervousness or just uncertainty or intuition. I don't know what, but like a weird feeling in my gut. And I decided to think about it. It was a big commitment. And he was probably just nervous about making a big commitment. And I was like, this is one of those decisions that totally changes the direction of your life, So I need to really, really make sure this is what I want to do. And then, so I went home, and from both of them, I visited them both, not in the same day, but right in the same week. And a couple weeks later, I was paralyzed, man.
Really?
Isn't that freaking crazy?
So you were out of college at this point when you were thinking about this?
Yeah. I kind of fast forwarded a couple years from college.
I mean, because sometimes people are thinking about that when they're in high school. Like I thought about going into the military in high school, and then I got accepted to college, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go party.
Yep. Well, through college, it was kind of like, am I going to be a teacher or, be like a firefighter or go in the military or, I was thinking about I wanted to be a rescue diver. Everything I did was in the water, and I really enjoyed swimming. Although I didn't start swimming really until I was in college. So yeah, and I was like, oh, maybe become a career lifeguard. So that was kind of the direction that I was thinking I was going to go.
Yeah, so you're 25 then, correct? If I have that right, the math right?
Yep. So at the time of that story, yeah, when I was looking to be going the SEALs or Coast Guard, that was when I was 25. Yep.
Yeah, because that's when you got injured.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's what brought us here.
Yeah, that's only that. I mean, who knows where I'd be? I'd probably be in San Diego working as a lifeguard.
Yeah, or if you were or if you ended up changing your mind again.
Yeah,
because you didn't have the opportunity. Then a couple weeks later, you might have been Jocko Willink.
I don't think anybody could be Jocko Willink. I've emailed him actually. I emailed him that story. And his people answered me. They're like, okay, we'll tell him. I was like, I want to be on your podcast.
Yeah.
It's a cool story. Come on, man. I mean, I was like, I live by a lot of the things that you teach, and this could be cool content, and I'm a Navy brat, and I was almost a SEAL. Like, come on, have me on your podcast. I know I'm a civilian, but
he has civilians on.
He has civilians on. Yeah. I was like, it's just a cool story. I'm like, and we're both in San Diego. Like, let's just have a beer even,
Yeah.
But he didn't get back to me. What's up, Jocko?
I'm sure Jocko's listening to this. Yeah, he has some awesome stories.
Because he's a huge mountain biker.
Yeah, he is a huge surfer.
Yeah, he surfs a ton.
So.
And he lives in San Diego.
Well, so for those that don't know, Jeremy P. McGhee is an adaptive athlete.
Yeah.
I will record a real intro that explains all of that after this.
Okay.
But so that obviously changed the course of your life. And then, since then you've gotten into other athletics. Like what kind of things piqued your interest when you knew, okay, so you get injured, you I don't know if you want to tell that story here, but I heard the story the other day when you did your keynote speech, and it was an incredible story. You know, you with just the situation and the circumstances that made everything come together.
Yeah.
You know, and then so you have a new lease on life at the same time to kind of change the direction of what you're going to do to stay active. Like, what kind of things were you looking at as far as being active?
Yeah. Well, how funny was that guy that got the phone call when I was telling that story?
Hello. Yeah.
And he answered his phone.
I can't believe that, actually. That, like, everyone should have had their ringers off.
I wanted this. I had actually, it was probably obvious that I had rehearsed that. I don't know if it was or not.
Well, you did a really good job. So,
but I had like this vision. It's probably not good to have expectations, but it was. I wanted it to be somewhat of a performance.
Mm-hmm.
I start with that line that like hits you.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about the vision of the lady's side mirror being smashed in my face, and I want to shock people into listening, that's my like interest catcher. Like people are like, oh shit, like,
yeah.
Oh wait, or like, wait, what does he mean? A side mirror smashed in his face? What is that? And then it was right after I said that line, and this is going to be some like emotional soliloquy, that I'm going to deliver on stage, and the guy's fucking phone rings, and I just think he's going to, and he's right in front of me, he's in the front row. And I think he's going to like just silence it. And oh no, he picks it up. And not only does he pick it up, he starts talking. Like, what the heck?
Well, and for those that weren't there, it was literally in the perfect gap of silence. Where like it wasn't like you're in the middle of a story, it was the pause.
Yeah, I've adopted the Obama pauses. Yeah, I used to be really uncomfortable with the pregnant pauses, but now I'm not at all.
I've heard they're a good thing, actually.
I just
we won't edit that one
out. Yeah, so God, okay, my accident. And then, did that spark any new interests? Was the question?
Well, like, what new activities can I get into now? Like, what other stuff? Because we'll get into this, but for those that don't know, Jeremy is a skier. Jeremy is a mountain biker. We've learned already that before he was 25, he probably didn't ski, and we know he didn't mountain bike.
Correct. That is a correct assumption. I snowboarded.
Okay. Well, I see you had Big Bear not too far away.
Yeah, so surfing and snowboarding. Yeah, I forgot to mention when you asked what sports I was into. I was in, other than surfing and fitness, I was into snowboarding.
Okay.
Pretty big time, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
And then...
Well, that was when snowboarding was like in its first... I mean, X Games were coming online.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just... I picked it up fast. I picked up snowboarding really fast, and it was really fun. I actually, was, getting some small sponsors and like photo incentives, like almost like right away, like my second year snowboarding. So that was kind of cool.
Was Big Bear kind of your home hill?
I went to Big Bear every week.
Okay.
Every week. I was working as a lifeguard and a waiter at a restaurant. That was my most favorite job I've ever had, was working at this restaurant. It's so much fun. So much fun. But I would work Wednesday to Saturday. I would work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sometimes not even Wednesdays. And I would drive to Big Bear first thing Monday morning every week. And then snowboard Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning, and then drive home in time for work. It was about a 2.5 hour drive.
Mm-hmm.
And drive home in time for work Wednesday night if I work Wednesday night. And then I would lifeguard early in the mornings.
Well, that's one of those very unique locations that you can actually do both things in one day.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. I've surfed and snowboarded in the same day many times.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible place to live and to grow up. That's for sure. I'm very lucky. I wish I could say that my accident did not change me. I wish I could say I continued to be the same person. But I mean, the reality, and I did say that a lot, but it was totally my ego talking, out of an effort to not be a cliche, you know? But at the same time, I would say totally cliche things like, oh, the pain makes me remember I'm alive, like totally cliche stuff. And so my effort to not be a cliche actually became one. My accident totally changed me. Being close to death is going to change anybody,
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And not that I wasn't living an inspired life before, but what it did was wake me up to the reality of the frailty. I was definitely living with reckless abandon. And not reckless and abandon in like a partying sense, but like reckless abandon with my body.
Yeah.
As a young athlete, just hucking myself off cliffs and not really calculating if I'm going to land or not,
I do want to pause for the listeners right here, just because not everybody knows your story. Your injury was not due to living reckless abandon.
Well, yeah, I was riding motorcycles. Yeah.
But how many people ride motorcycles?
That's true. That's
like
true.
It wasn't like you're doing 90 or 100 miles an
no,
hour.
No, but I usually was. And this is when my accident happened. So good point. It was the one time I wasn't. And I was actually being a responsible rider at the time of my accident. I was actually took my eyes off the road in front of me for a split second to check a driveway that I was passing to make sure nobody was coming out of the driveway. And it took like longer than a split second because there was an RV parked on the side of the road. So I had to kind of like peer around the RV to make sure a car wasn't coming out, because there was 2 lanes and I was in the right lane. So 4 lanes overall, 2 lanes in each direction. And I was in the right lane. So that driveway, is the first, danger, potential danger. So that I'm closest to, since I'm in the right lane and the driveway's on the right. So I kind of was peering around this RV. And in that time, I was passing somebody. And so because I was passing somebody, that driver was in between the line of sight of me and the lady that turned in front. So she made a left turn. She was coming the opposite direction and made a left turn, cut him off. He had to slam on his brakes, but she didn't know I was on the other side of him. And in that time, it was just the perfect storm of different factors. And that's how accidents happen,
Oh, yeah.
And is when these different factors come together. So it wasn't like I was speeding. Yes, you're totally right. I mean, it wasn't like inattention or anything like that. It was just like these factors just kind of added up and boom, just crashing inside of her.
Yeah. So once you kind of got, once you became, I guess, healthy again, like what kind of things, what kind of things kind of piqued your interest for new ways to stay busy?
I'm going to grab another beer.
Oh, for sure.
You want another cider?
I'm good for now, but since you have it open, I'll take one.
Got my...
In this, I can edit out.
Refrigerator in my van right here.
I'm going to turn this just a little bit.
We've got not Sierras, sorry guys, but Josh brought over some Ozark Beer Company IPA, which is certainly delicious, and some ciders for himself. Let me see if I can reach. Oh, there's my beer. I'm going to switch that one out. That O that I just said is going to be a nice red blip on your sound profile.
That's all right.
Okay.
I run all the, I do edit all I spend way too much time editing because
seriously.
I'm definitely not perfect at audio. I'm not a professional podcaster. I'm just a person that got into it from a product of driving around too much for work and getting sick of listening to NPR and stuff and needing to listen to something else. And I found other podcasts like what we were talking about earlier, like Jocko.
I'm an NPR listener. I am sick of it. But I'm sick of it for the reason that I'm like sick of everything.
Yeah.
I want an unbiased news source.
Yeah.
I can't.
That's a whole different kind of worms.
Listeners, if you know of an unbiased news source, like
You can
send me
find
a
us
message.
a unicorn while you're at it.
Find a unicorn. A unicorn is a girl that's under a 5 crazy and over an 8 hot. Right?
Yeah,
That's
like
a unicorn. Have you seen that video?
No.
That's so
Oh wait, yeah, I have. The Crazy Hot Matrix.
The Crazy Hot Matrix is so funny. That's so funny. Oh, every
Yeah.
time I see that, it'll be a random, I'll be scrolling through social media and it'll, come up somehow. And every time I ever see that, I just die laughing. It's so freaking funny.
Yeah, I wasn't sick of NPR for the news thing. I just wanted to listen to something different. Like I didn't want to listen to news anymore. I wanted to listen
other than news. Got you.
I wanted to be able to pick, well, basically exactly what podcasts do for you. I wanted to be able to pick what I wanted to listen to, the topic. Some days I want to listen to something like a Jocko or something like,
yep.
What's another one that I listen to?
Do you ever listen to Gary Vee?
I have listened to Gary Vaynerchuk a little bit.
In phases. I get tired of him and then I'm like, and then, like several months later, I'll like listen to something. I'm like, oh, it's so awesome. Yeah. And then I'll get tired of him again. And then, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I get into the whole, it's I think it's too bad that self-help has like a taboo thing, right? Because it isn't, it shouldn't be, but I mean, long story short, people I know me know I've gone through depression issues and like, you can go to a therapist, which means you have to schedule it. Or you can go through all these podcasts.
Yeah.
And do it any time of the day whenever you need that help.
Yep. That's what's so cool about podcasts too, is you can hang out basically just spend time with these people that are like super like inspiring to be around.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Like that's kind of what led me to doing the Trail Effect podcast. It's like, okay, like these questions that I ask a lot of the people about trails, like I want to know that myself. Okay, how can I get the keys to that vehicle to get me access to these people, to get these answers, and at the same time record it so other people can learn their knowledge as well.
It's great. I love that.
Like it baffles me every time when somebody's like, yeah, I'll do the podcast with you. I'm like, fucking sweet.
Fucking sweet.
Like
that's cool, man.
And it's open doors. It's you have one guest on, that guest has somebody else, and it's snowballed into some pretty awesome stuff. But we've gone off on a tangent now.
That's what I like that though. I like the conversational and the tangents, and we'll bring it full circle and get back to stuff. But I think that's what I really enjoy podcasts. Like I'm not, when I have a podcast on, that's not all I'm doing usually, It's great background for when I'm like in the house, cleaning, getting ready for bed, whatever it is. And it's nice to have there's like a cool conversation going on. I'll catch, most of it or whatever. Or when I'm like cycling or when I'm working out. And so, I'm listening to it, but it doesn't have like a full 100% of my attention. And it's just nice to have, I have a feeling that like I'm just in a room hanging out with other people. Yeah. And so I really like the conversational long form podcast for that reason. When I'm driving too, on long
driving
trips.
is huge. It's like it's fun. Like I've even had Sirius XM or whatever, Spotify, and it's like, I'll listen to music, but then it's for a brief period, and then I flip back to whatever topic has piqued my interest for that moment, whether it's mountain biking or something Gary Vee or Jocko.
I do murder podcasts. You ever do
I haven't got into the whole like mystery or storytelling type of podcasts.
I had not either, and then I don't know. I was driving. And God, Apple CarPlay is so amazing. And able to scroll through podcasts while driving. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll give it. I love it. And then the one that I've discovered that's really freaking cool is Against All Odds.
Okay.
Have you heard of this one?
No.
It's a Wondery podcast It's on Wondery.
I maybe have heard of it.
And they do stories of like amazing survival.
Yeah, like just the most crazy stuff.
Yes, crazy stuff, and it's gripping.
I've not heard the podcast, but I just heard about the podcast because I also listen to podcasts about podcasting, so I can become
And
a
that
better
one came up
podcaster. And the person that was being interviewed was the person that does what you're talking about against all odds. He was being interviewed about how he does his podcast and how it came about.
Maybe I should listen to that. That sounds awesome. The last one I listened to was on the story of the USS Indianapolis.
Okay.
I think it was a destroyer that was in 1945 that was sunk by a Japanese submarine during World War II, and how the crew, like the crew that survived, and the whole story. I think it was like 5 or 6 episodes, and they survived out at sea for 5 days, and it's just. I mean, there's this perfect storm of shark attacks, and like they're living in a huge oil slick because the destroyer, like, massive ship sunk, and it's all the oil from that, and they're basically covered in oil, and oh my god, and they go crazy because they're drinking seawater, and that, I guess that makes you go crazy. I don't know, and so they're like attacking each other, and like it is insane.
The thing that came to mind as soon as I heard about that podcast that you're talking about was, how does this podcaster come across these guests to tell these stories? Like, where do you find these stories?
Oh, he's like a research journalist. So, he'll say like, not everything, like there's no way to know exactly what was said and what went on, so there's a fictional element in that respect. But it's all basically true. It's all based on fact, and oh my god, it's like, so I guess that is historical fiction. Is that's called then? Gripping. He also did the story on the Uruguayan soccer team that crashed in the Andes that the movie Alive was made of. Like they ended up surviving by eating the dead, and oh my god. And then I think it was in Taiwan. Was it Taiwan? The little kid, like the kids, I think it was also a soccer team that got stuck in the like underground caves, and the cave divers had to like go in and rescue them. Like, just crazy shit, dude. And they had to like swim underwater for 6 miles to get out of these caves.
That's some serious rescue swimming.
Yeah, dude. Like the best cave divers in the world were called to like dive in there and see if these people, one, were still alive, and then find them. And it's like the details of like they surfaced and they just smelled like shit because like these people were living in there for I don't know how many days, and they had to shit somewhere, and oh my god, insane.
You gotta wonder if the people they called the cave divers that were like the best cave divers were just kind of excited to go do a mission that they do for probably fun anyways, but at the same time save some lives. Like you know what I mean? Like you gotta wonder if that's aspect of like, this ought to be interesting. Like, I do this anyways. Let's go ramp it up a few notches.
Lives are at stake and get paid probably quite handsomely.
Yeah, to do what I love to do anyways.
That is pretty amazing, and hopefully save lives.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the question was,
oh, we were talking about. I can't believe I remember this. We were talking about the activities that you were, right. Now that you have a different outlook on life, we've established that you are super athletic, but obviously there's some new things you got to, want to find out or explore, essentially.
Yeah. So I continued surfing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that in your.
Got back in the water like almost right away. It was fucking gnarly, dude.
That's got to be.
It was so gnarly. It was so hard. It was so hard and so gnarly. But that has really evolved, and progressed. And I mean, now, and then I've kind of backed off a little bit on on the size of surf that I feel comfortable in now. Although I've surfed quite a few very large days, since then, and been completely fine and had a great time. But I don't know. I've had a few scares out in the water, um, a few close calls. I broke my femur one time. My I I'm strapped into the board. I have a quick release belt, and usually I wait for the wave to kind of fizzle out before I pull my quick release belt. But for some reason, in this day was fucking epic, epic. One of the most epic days I think I've ever surfed in my entire life. And it was big. It was pretty big. But it was just beautiful, and it was no worries. But for some reason, I went over the falls on this wave, and I just pulled my belt right away. I kind of freaked out. It was a pretty big wave, and I kind of freaked out and pulled my belt right away. And I came out of the board, but my foot didn't. I have like a little strap over my feet to keep them from bouncing out while I'm surfing a wave. And for some reason, my foot got caught in that little strap, and my board took my leg for a ride.
Ooh.
Cracked my femur in half. That was gnarly. And then a couple years ago, my leg got shoved through that same strap. And that strap was like up over my thigh, where it's supposed to just be over my ankles. So that's how far my leg was through. It was all the way through the strap. Just getting like from being pounded in the surf. And I couldn't. I was stuck underwater. Actually, I couldn't.
Upside down, probably.
I was upside down. I couldn't. I could kind of get my lips out of the water, but then I would get hit by another wave, and I couldn't get air. So that was a close call. But my friend finally got to me and flipped me over. But my leg was still stuck, and he couldn't get my leg out. It was wedged in there. He couldn't even get my leg out, and they finally. Then like more people came over, and they finally were able to get me out of my board. And so I've had that so I've kind of slowed down a little bit with the surfing. I didn't think that those things had affected me, but then I found myself like making excuses to not go.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized like, oh shit, I'm maybe a little traumatized from that. So I've been trying to work through that and getting slowly back out into the water. So I kind of only go out now when it's mellow and the sun's out. And when I'm with a crew of like good friends, like vibes are good,
Yeah.
So I continued surfing, but yeah, it was kind of gnarly at first. And then I realized the progression. I didn't mountain bike at all.
Yeah.
I've never been a mountain biker, and but I've been a runner. I've always loved running, and I always said like if I had like parents that like helped me realize and understand like where my talents were and what I could actually take somewhere, I probably would have pursued running. Like what do you do as a teenager when you don't have any direction, but you follow the tide? You do what's cool, right? So I played football because that's what was cool, and I loved it. It was great, and I excelled at it because I worked hard, but I was never, I could have played college ball, but at a small college, definitely not a big college. Maybe I could have maybe like played like special teams or something at a bigger college. But I was never going to take it anywhere. I was never going to be a professional football player ever. Look, I'm small and white. I'm no good. I'm no good. I was the crazy white guy that painted his face and slammed his head into the locker. And was like the crazy white guy with long hair.
All wound up.
All hyped up. That was that guy on the team. And my one claim to fame. And there's some pieces of information that I do not hesitate to share. And this is one of them. I was a junior, and Michael Pittman was a senior. He played for Tampa Bay when they were in the Super Bowl against I guess Raiders were Oakland at the time, I think. When Tampa Bay played Oakland, and then he also played for Denver for a while. And his son now plays for the Indianapolis Colts. So here's a guy that has played in the Super Bowl and has had a very good NFL career. When he was a senior in high school, came up to me after practice and said, McGhee, man, I'm afraid to hit you, bro. Yes, because I was that like crazy white guy. But anyways, if I I think if I would have had like parents that like helped me realize that like I was not built for football physically, and that I was good at running, I probably would have like ran cross country and focused on like track and stuff instead. I've always been a runner. I've always loved running. I've always been able to. I would say if I had a talent, it would be enduring pain. I'd definitely be able to embrace the suck and push through it. And if I was not in a chair, I think that's what I would be doing. Like one of the weird ultra trail runner people, probably.
Yeah, I got friends like that, and I can't wrap my head around what some of those guys do. Those people that run for 24 hours or do 100+ mile runs.
I love that, man. I love that.
It's like
I love that.
I love doing it on a mountain bike. I can't wrap my head around the running aspect of it.
But see, I can't ride a mountain bike for more than like if I have a 30-mile day, I'm toast on my bike. Well, the body position is pretty grueling for me. Like lifting my head, my neck gets really sore is the main thing. So maybe it's more of that. But I don't know. Running was different.
You probably would have taken endurance, ultra endurance, cross country mountain biking if you like to embrace that suck.
Maybe. I think I don't want the equipment. Like there's so much beauty in like basically just having a pair of shoes. Yeah. And that's all your equipment. And sometimes not even that. Like I run barefoot a lot too.
Yeah, there's those crazy marathoners that do that sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I think like if I had the choice, I would choose simplicity. Mm-hmm. And like I just want to like have a pair of shoes and a pair of trunks and maybe a knife on my hip and like run through the jungle and
just
like
for protection,
dive through for food, to bust open coconuts or something. I don't know. But like I just have this dream of, like diving through streams and scaling rocks and running for no reason.
Yeah.
Not going anywhere.
Except for the reason of doing it.
Exactly. That's kind of like, I think that's what I would be doing. And just like living off the land. I don't know. Just, pulling leeches off my feet or whatever. I don't know.
Well, you took the snowboarding that you did and translated that into skiing.
Yeah. So snowboarding, as a para athlete translates to sit skiing.
Yep.
And so the reason why I moved to Mammoth and like started skiing a ton was because surfing has a ton of logistics.
Yeah.
I mean, getting across the sand, you have a board that, a piece of equipment that does not have wheels that needs to be carried.
Yeah, they're bulky and they're hard. Yeah. They're hard to put in a vehicle.
Yeah, and like my bike has wheels. I can push it around on the ground. A board, you can't do that. It's fiberglass. It's brittle. It's gonna break. It's gonna get scraped up and dinged. It has to be carried and cared for. And then the whole wetsuit thing. I'm like, imagine like putting on a wetsuit's hard for anybody. Imagine like trying to push a limp foot through it. And dude, this is the trip. Like putting on a wetsuit sitting down. It's so hard, dude. It's so hard.
Well, and for those that don't know, I didn't realize this, and well, I guess I learned this later on in high school and going into college. My father lived in San Diego, so I'm familiar with the Pacific Ocean when I'd visit him for the 2 weeks out of the year, and the Pacific is freaking cold.
It's cold, man.
Like, and I didn't really, when you see it in the movies and that, like most people do, you don't really think of that.
Yep.
And then when my father moved to the East Coast and into North Carolina, right on the coast, I walked into the Atlantic and it was like bathwater. I was like, what in the?
Yep. And you think it's opposite.
It's exactly it. Like I thought for sure. I'm like, it's like May and it's like 80-degree water.
Yep.
And you go into the Pacific and it's not that ever.
No. Like people like vacation in San Diego, like thinking it's going to be like Hawaii, thinking it's going to be warm, and it is not. I mean, there's times when it is that, but those windows are pretty small and short. It's overcast a lot. The marine layer,
the marine layer is real.
Is a real thing that is mind numbing sometimes. And sometimes, some summers, the water never warms up. Like, you know, so there's some summers where the water has been 80. It has, and it's freaking crazy, but that's rare, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's cold.
Yeah. So my point was, for people, like, putting on a wetsuit is almost mandatory.
I wear a wetsuit year round.
Yeah.
When I'm surfing, if I'm surfing, because you're doing a lot of sitting,
Yeah.
and then on my board I'm up above the water, so if there's any breeze or wind, I'm just sitting wet in the breeze. So I wear a wetsuit year round. If I'm paddling, sometimes I won't wear a wetsuit because I'm working out. You know, I'm constantly moving when I'm paddling, so I'm sweating. My heart rate's up,
and you're not as wet.
And you're not as wet. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Except when I'm doing prone paddling, you know, the water washes over the board, so you get kind of wet when you're doing prone. But yeah, no, you're not in the water as much, yeah, and you're not wiping out and getting wet and stuff like that. So I moved to Mammoth because surfing was I couldn't surf by myself, but I could ski by myself at the time. I can't anymore. But I could ski by myself at the time, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna move to the snow. And I'm going to really push my skiing career. And I lived in Mammoth for 7 winters, not for 7 years straight. I think 3 off seasons in that 7 years. I came back to San Diego for a summer, you know, three summers in between there. But pretty much was in Mammoth for 7 years and skied 100+ days every year. And so, you know, my accident dictated that, you know. Like I said, I wish I could say that my accident did not dictate, you know, the course of my activities, but it did. I chose to pursue skiing because surfing now had a ton of logistics. And then in my time there, you know, what do people do in the mountains in the summer? They ride.
They ride.
They ride.
You come for the winter and you stay for the summer.
You go for the winter. You move there for the winter. You stay for the summer. And I just wanted to be out on the trail. I found out later in life that I love trails, and I love being out on the trail, and I love exploring new trail and adventuring and getting in the backcountry where there's trail or even fire roads. It's just really cool seeing new things and being exposed in nature. And so that kind of started leading me down the adaptive bike route, was wanting to get out in the backcountry.
Yeah, and Mammoth has that. And Mammoth was doing lift access via gondola in the early 90s.
Weren't they the first?
They could have been the first. I mean,
I think they were. I think the Kamikaze was the first bike park mountain trail ever.
Yeah, and the actual
I could be mistaken,
Kamikaze trail is just a fire road.
It's just a death-defying fire road.
Yes.
Oh my God. I got clocked at 56 going down that, dude.
I've been on it, not doing 56, but I've been on it, and I mean, I remember.
Woo! Scary.
We're going back into the early 90s, but I remember you could turn on. Anybody remember ESPN2? ESPN2 might be a thing, but anyhow, still.
It is a thing still.
Yeah. They never did the Ocho though. But I remember turning on late night at my house one time, turning on ESPN2 and seeing the Kamikaze Reebok Eliminator downhill. You know, 2 athletes, you know, in skin suits on hardtails, or kind of not hardtails, but mountain bikes, as everybody knows that's been in mountain biking for as long as we've been around.
They had just had bushings for rear
they had
suspension.
They had bushings for suspension, but they had 60-some tooth chain rings. So they had these huge chain rings.
Yep.
And literally aerodynamic speed suits like you'd see in the 80s and 90s speed skiing with fairings. And they'd be getting chased down the course on film by helicopters, you know, so they could film the whole thing.
So scary, dude.
It's just.
I have a cool relationship with the Kamikaze because when I first started mountain biking, first got my first adaptive bike, and I'm like, well, you know, I'm living in Mammoth. I asked people, what can I ride? And you can ride Kamikaze. So that's all I rode. And I got to know it really well. Oh my God. The last time they had the Kamikaze event, which it's officially retired now, But the last time they did it, it was a mass start, which is crazy to think about. But they sent the adaptive guys down separately from everybody else.
Yeah.
And I was out in front, and I got a flat tire immediately. I flatted immediately. And I was probably halfway down when the guy... No. I was at the hay bale turn when the guy behind me finally passed me. The hay bale turn is the last big right turn at the bottom. So I was probably 9/10 or like 4/5 of the way done. You know, like almost to the finish, and I did it with a fucking flat. And there were a couple times in that run I was, I'm going off the side. I was completely drifting. My bike was almost all the way sideways. I had no control of my rear end.
So was it rear flat or front?
It was a rear flat.
Okay.
It was a rear flat.
Front flat would have been...
Front flat, I would not have been able to do it. With the rear flat, I was just like drifting sideways. And, you know, for those of you that don't know Mammoth, it's all loose pumice. And pumice is basically like kitty litter. It's like sand.
It's like big sand.
It's like big sand. We call it the kitty litter.
Yeah.
So it's just loose, and oh my god, I remember being completely sideways, going right for the edge. There's a total drop off. I'm like, oh, I'm going over the edge, and like barely, my bike just like front wheel just barely dug in and got just enough where I didn't go off the edge. But I know that run very well.
Yeah. Let's stay at Mammoth.
Okay.
We're gonna get off. We're going to get off of mountain biking now. We're going to go back to a movie. Return to Bloody. Like, this is an incredible story. And is it, what I didn't catch was, is it out in live, or is there just a trailer at this point?
Oh, no, it is out. It was, okay. We released it and went on tour with it in 2014.
Okay. So I did not know that.
Yeah.
But the trailer itself was incredible to watch on...
Yeah, those guys are super talented. Now, all that footage in the trailer is not movie footage. That we shot all that stuff in like 2010 and 2011.
Oh wow!
All like the teaser footage.
And it's good footage. Which
the guys
camera
are super
equipment
talented.
and that wasn't like a thing like it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, now I could stick a GoPro everywhere.
Right, exactly. But no, those guys are the guys that shot it are Hollywood pros.
Okay.
Actually, Michael Jones, Mike, which I'll send this to you and make sure you listen. I'll tell you, I shout out. He shot the new Top Gun movie that's coming out.
Well, spoiler alert for everybody, because I've been like, we're totally detouring now, okay? Just because you said the new Top Gun movie. Like, for 2 freaking years, I've been waiting for this thing to come out.
We all have!
Like, for those that, like, it's like, okay, it's going to come out on July 6th, which the year it was supposed to come out on July 6th. That's my birthday. I'm like, I'm going to Top Gun.
Wait, no, it's coming out May 27th.
Yeah, now it is, but initially, like 2 years ago.
Oh, when originally.
Yeah, when it was real, and then it got pushed.
So I think
and then it got pushed again.
You're not going to be here. You're going to be home.
Yeah.
But I want to get like decked out 80s and go see it with my crew here. I think it'd be so fun.
Yeah.
It looks like so good, but so terribly bad, like it should be.
Well, and
you know what I mean?
the trailer that I've watched probably a dozen or more times at this point, because every time you think about it, it's like, when is this thing going to come out? And I just saw it again the other day, because it's now coming out officially.
May 27th.
And I remember seeing Tom Cruise, and it's like, he's the same Tom Cruise.
Oh, it's awesome. But did you see the newest trailer that was just released a few days ago?
The trailer I watched was a couple days ago.
Okay. Oh, GoPro. Forgive me, I'm going to change GoPro battery.
Oh, for sure.
It's died.
Do you need me to grab it? Oh, you got it. You got long limbs.
I know. Actually, I do have long arms. I got last time I was measured for a tuxedo, the guy measured and remeasured my arms 6 times because he was like, that can't be correct. So I guess I have long arms, but it's like, I think it's just an adaptation.
Really?
I think so. Like the
I
human
suppose
body
you probably
is
weren't moving your arm, like getting measured for tuxedos.
no, not when I was a kid. I don't think I ever did get measured for a suit, but I think my arms have gotten longer. I know I've gotten taller.
Really?
Yeah, because think about it, my lower body's like not under gravity,
Okay.
so I've gotten taller. Um,
The rest of us get shorter.
and I think my arms have lengthened since I've been in a wheelchair. Um, well, the camera's really warm. I wonder. I think I'll just like when I post this to YouTube. I think I'll like let the picture run black with sound, just sound, until it comes back on. I think that'd be kind of cool. What do you think?
Yeah.
um. Okay, so Top Gun, Michael Jones. Okay, and then my other buddy who shot it, I'm bragging about you guys if if you end up listening to this. Alan Jacoby, if you IMDb him, he's shot a lot of the X-Men movies. He shot Longmire, which is like a Montana. It's actually shot in New Mexico, but it's a Montana-based like sheriff show on TNT. That had many seasons. See GoPro recording. Okay, we're good. Let's see if I can get it. Oh, I bumped the microphone. We're both in there.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, recording again. And he also shot SEAL Team on CBS.
Oh yeah.
And he got in the final season that he worked on the show, he got director.
Oh wow.
He was always camera A and then got director. So I like to brag about those guys and just say that they're really, really talented, and I was super lucky to work with them. Alan Jacoby actually has a YouTube channel, and I will link that in the caption. I can't remember the name, but he's a huge fat biker.
Oh.
So he has a lot of like fat bike information. He does a lot of gear reviews and stuff like that. And so definitely check out his channel.
I'm semi-familiar with fat biking coming from Wisconsin. It's really the only biking I can do in the winter.
Exactly. That's the cool thing about fat biking is you can bike year round. I'm actually developing a new, really simplified bike. Well, my reasoning is that I want to be able to like get on the beach, ride on the beach. I don't want to take my $15,000 bike on the beach.
Yeah.
It just gets
Salt.
so ruined.
Yeah.
So ruined. And so I just want like a simplified fat tire beach bike.
I know Lacey Heward's aMTB adaptive mountain bike. It has fat tires on it because she lives in Wisconsin now, and she does ride it in the winter.
Tell her I said hello. I haven't seen her for a long time. Yeah, last time I saw her was in Sun Valley, and we were on a cat ski trip together, and I was really, really struggling. We were on this backcountry trip, and I had brand new skis that I'd never used before that were way too stiff. I was getting custom skis at the time from Moment Skis.
Okay. Yep.
And they would actually add another top sheet for me and just make them uber stiff, because I was always breaking skis like crazy and going through skis like crazy. But I stopped skiing as much, and so my skis weren't getting as noodled out anymore. And so, and these skis are really, really stiff, and I could not ski them in the soft stuff. I was really fucking struggling. It was actually really bad. And she broke a ski, and she ended up needing one. I let her use my backup ski, and she was like, "How the fuck do you do this? This is like a GS ski in powder. It's impossible."
Yeah, I could just imagine, because especially the way skis have gone.
Mm-hmm.
So
they're ultra fat but ultra stiff, and it was bad. It was really bad. Okay, where were we? Okay, shooting the teaser, Bloody.
Yeah.
So cool to work with those guys, and all that footage we shot way before we actually went on the expedition. But Bloody is a special mountain because it holds snow year round, and like you go out there in the summer. Mammoth usually gets like some of the most is a mountain that gets like the most snow in North America every year. It's always between like Mammoth and Whistler and Kirkwood. You know, they get the most snow every year. Mammoth's right there. You know, it's one of those mountains. And so there'll be snow on the mountains year round. And this one couloir, just the sun just hits it minimally, every day, and it's just and you only go out there in the summer because the road, it melts out. Otherwise, you got to take a snowmobile out there, and it's way harder. But in the summer, you can take a truck or a 4x4 vehicle out there, off-road vehicle, and get to the base for the approach. And so all my friends would go hike and ski this thing every summer, and then one time, actually, I had just gotten my 4-wheel downhill bike, and there's a road called McGhee Road, actually.
Without the H, probably.
no H, yeah. McGhee Mountain, and there's a road, this rad switchback road up to the top. You can see it from the highway, and you're like, look at that crazy ass road. And so I made my girlfriend at the time. My plan was to make my girlfriend at the time like shuttle me to the top of this road, and so I could downhill on my 4-wheel bike, because it had no drivetrain, so I need to be shuttled, and my buddy was like, "Oh, if you go out there, I'm gonna go too, and we can camp in the meadow, and I'm gonna go ski this peak out of this meadow while you go do that." And I was like, "Oh, rad, let's go, bro." So we set up camp in the meadow. My girlfriend takes me I had a 4Runner at the time. She drives my 4Runner to the top of the switchback as far as we could go till it got too gnarly. And there was a turnaround. It's insane. It's insane, this road, and the views from up there. And so she drops me off, and I bomb down it, and it's freaking gnarly. My bike's like barely holding together. It's all rocky and, raw, and there's all these herd of cows at the bottom that I just like blast into. There's probably like 40 cows, and I'm going like probably like 30-40 miles per hour, and I like blast in the middle of them, and they all scatter, and now I'm down low, so it's super scary. I'm like, wait a second, what the fuck did I just do? And I slam on the brakes, and all the cows scatter, and I'm like, I don't know how I didn't get trampled. And the cows all scatter, and I'm left there, and I'm like, oh wait, I am in a huge like pile of manure. And I've got to reach back and like push my bike like a wheelchair.
Yeah, that has no drivetrain.
No drivetrain, so I have to push the back wheels like a wheelchair, and it's awkward because you're pushing back behind you like this, and I'm just getting my gloves covered in manure. It's so crazy. My girlfriend finally pulls up, and then we go do this other road out of there, which is the road to Bloody. We go to this other, and that's a crazy switchback road, and now it's like dark, and I remember bombing down that road, and there's a big old buck in the road, and I almost slammed into it. And I didn't have any lights because I wasn't prepared. But anyways, all that, and then we end up coming back to the meadow, meeting my buddy and his girlfriend at the campsite in the meadow, and they talk about how they went and climbed and skied this peak, and it's called Bloody. I'm like, tell me more. And that's how it started. I just got obsessed with this freaking mountain. My friends would go, and I want to go. I need to figure out how to get out there.
Yeah, and you had to train.
Yes, lots of training. I'm not a climber. I'm obviously not built to be a climber. I'm like, climbers are like, most climbers are compact and small, and strong, and I'm like lanky and lean, and so I'm definitely not a climber. I have zero experience climbing, and this involved a lot of climbing and a lot of pull-ups and things like that. So yeah, lots of training, but also ski training. At the time, I was not, I hadn't skied anything that steep ever. That's the steepest thing I've ever skied. And I've never skied anything with like in a no fall situation. Like if you fall, there is a 300-foot cliff below you, you will die. You know, I'd never seen anything like that where there's that high of consequences before.
Yeah. And so you literally climbed up there with your arms.
Mm-hmm. With help.
And this is where we are going to go back to something I pulled from your keynote speech.
Okay.
The other night.
Oh, crap. What did I say?
You talked about the message you left up there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. That's a big part of the story.
It
100%.
is.
100%. Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. So there's, I guess it's called a ledger. Forgive me if that's not the correct term, but it's basically just like a journal, like just rolled up and stuffed into a can that's stuffed into a rock. And I guess it's a thing in the mountaineering world, in the climbing world, where when you summit a peak, you find the ledger, and you know, you'd say you were there. You sign it and say, you know, Josh was here on this date. Da da da.
But this time it was Jeremy.
This time it was Jeremy. Yeah. Do you ever go by Joshua?
In a previous life.
I'm a
lot less formal now.
It's a Friends thing.
Yeah.
Were you ever a Friends fan?
Yes.
Because Rachel dated a guy named Joshua and would always correct people when they called him Josh. Remember? Do you remember this episode?
Yeah, we don't have to go into that.
Oh, is this painful?
No, it's just funny because my ex-wife is named Rachel.
Holy shit.
Which we're still good friends. Those that actually know me know the situation. Like, it's just funny.
But when Joshua breaks up with Rachel, it's one of my favorite lines in all of Friends. And it's not even one of the regular characters that has one of my favorite lines. She's, you know, she was like, let's, you know, have a relationship or whatever, or something. I can't remember exactly what she says. And he goes, how about no, but thanks. And the way the actor delivers a line, I don't know, it cracks me up laughing every time. That's my vision. So that's what I think of when I think of Joshua.
Yeah, some people call me Joshua because my signature, you know, I sign Joshua, or if I'm like I'm here at an Airbnb this week in Bentonville, and my Airbnb account is Joshua M.
Joshua
Blüm.
M.
Like, you know, throw my middle initial in there.
Okay. Joshua M. And what's your last name?
Blüm.
Blum.
Yep.
JMB.
JMB is correct.
JMB.
And he, when I met him, he called me Joshua, and I was like, just call me Josh.
That's okay. So you prefer Josh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found the ledger well, they brought it to me, and everybody was telling me you're supposed to save space in these things because they need to last for a really long time, you know? I mean, we're talking decades.
People don't come replace them monthly, you know. Just
no,
it's not like when you sign the book.
It's not like you can archive your message history. And so yeah, you're supposed to save space, and everyone was telling me to write my feelings and to like take up space for it because this was important. This was history, and I was like, no, man, this is simple. This is not a complicated thing. And I put the date, signed my name, Jeremy P. McGhee, and I wrote the phrase, do what you love, period. And because I felt like that was the theme for this whole thing and all the work that had gone to it and all the effort, you know, all the time, all the training, I mean, we had some pretty hard times during training, like figuring it out. That part of the story is insane, like what it took and all of that we went through, disagreeing, arguing. You know, the expedition was actually canceled at one point because some weather came in the day we were supposed to go, and there ended up actually being a slough slide, which if we were out there, it probably would have been pretty bad.
Yeah, we might not be sitting in your adventure van right now.
No, well, I probably wouldn't have died, but I would have been injured.
Yeah,
I probably would have been pretty injured.
Yeah, that stuff is legit. Yeah. I mean, like
imagine because the way we did it, I laid prone in like a plastic sled and was roped in, And if like 400 pounds of snow hit me in the chest, I probably would have like scorpioned back or something, you know. I probably wouldn't have killed me, but it would have it would have been
Yeah, that
not
stuff
good.
is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a man. I wish I could remember the name of the climbing movie that's out.
With Alex Honnold?
No, not with Alex.
Free Solo? No.
It's not Free Solo.
Oh, Cliffhanger?
No, not Cliffhanger. Did that have Sylvester Stallone in it?
Yes. Yeah. I actually put a clip of that movie in one of my last videos.
He is one of my favorite actors, by the way.
How could you not love Sylvester Stallone?
I know.
Dude? He's so he is radical in the pure sense of the word.
Yeah.
In the very 90s, 80s sense of it.
Yeah, no, it was a different climber. I think from the Washington area. I watched it over the winter with my girlfriend. We watched it, I think, back in January, and he did end up passing.
Oh, gnarly.
In the movie, and it wasn't due to a climbing failure. It was due to an avalanche.
Oh, yep.
You know,
I know a few people that have
the
died
stuff he was
avalanches.
doing. Actually, I thought made Alex Honnold stuff look not that bad, and Alex Honnold stuff is like
free soloing.
Freaking like you watch that movie and you're like sweating. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's my world. That's Yosemite. That's the Eastern Sierras, man. That's
Yeah.
Mammoth. That's the Ansel Adams Wilderness, man. And I don't know Alex, but a lot of my friends do. And the guys that took me up Bloody know him. They're all like pro climbers.
But yeah, do what you love. Like that spoke to me huge when you said that on stage the other night. Like that's just, especially the like kind of the living that I'm doing now, with a different life that I have, not, finding out kind of a new lease on life, being divorced and like figuring out my way and how it's supposed to be. It's like I'm in my mid 40s, and I live by the motto of something that I have on my phone, which is clock's ticking, start living.
Yep.
That's
exactly it.
And so we're here for how long? We don't know, but it ain't long, so you need to enjoy it.
100%. Yeah.
It's
a tough conundrum because you do want to do the prudent things to plan for a future. Because if you do end up, living to a ripe old age, you want to not be struggling or knowing where your next meal is coming from.
Financially or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, so you want to work hard. You want to build retirement. Buying a house for me was a big part of that, making sure that I'm going to be okay. But yeah. But for me, like, doing what you love doesn't mean live with reckless abandon and party your ass off like it's 1999. It doesn't mean that. It means figuring out what you want out of your life, no matter what that is. What everybody wants is different. That might not mean, travel the world and swim with the dolphins or whatever, might not mean that kind of stuff. It might mean something completely different for somebody else, when you have family, that I can understand. I don't have family, but I can understand that would definitely be very different if I did, or everybody's different, but whatever that is, define it and define it clearly and concisely. And then for me, and like I said the other night during the talk, is if that is something that is easily achieved, like if you can just, like my friends can just like boot pack Bloody in a given afternoon, not even a day. Like they can decide like at noon after they eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, like, hey, let's go hike Bloody, and it's noon already, and they can go hike it and come back, it probably by dark or maybe back after it's dark. But the point is they can just, it was a lot harder for me to go.
They can decide to do it that day.
Yeah. For me, it's a lot different. I mean, the logistics and what it took to get out there and all that to say, like, if what we decide we want in our lives is easily achieved, if it doesn't take like a ton of work or effort or hardship, then uh, my advice from my experience in life and what has increased my quality of life is maybe rethink that. Because what I have found, and this is a very painful thing to say, like this is very difficult coming to this realization that like when something involves a level of enduring hardship and like the greater the sense of accomplishment on the other side of it. And I'm thinking that's what maybe spoke to you in the talk, and like the greater the level. And that's something that is not new information for any of us, you know, and it's something that's very obvious. But for some reason, we spend so much time and effort trying to make our lives as comfortable as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I do.
Yeah.
You know, I do. I didn't want to ride today. It was fucking snowing today.
I know. We're we're gonna timestamp this thing. It's March 31st. We're in Bentonville,
and it snowed today.
Most people come, at least you know the world that I live in, coming from the upper Midwest and Wisconsin. Like this is everybody's that's into mountain biking. This is their spring break trip, and it's so they can get out of what we just saw today, which is white and falls out of the sky.
It was dumping. It didn't stick. But
Yeah,
it was coming down hard.
Yeah,
I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go out in that.
Yeah, this morning at the conference, when Aaron said, "Oh, we're gonna move Jeremy's ride from 10 o'clock this morning or 9:30 this morning when I was supposed to be to 3 o'clock this afternoon," it's like okay, and I was like, "Cool," because at the time the sun was actually out then.
It was
at that point the sun
was nice.
was out. You know, I was like, cool. You know, like I wanted to do that ride, but I also wanted to do some conference things, and like now I can go do the ride and do some conference things. And like 2 hours later, it was snowing.
Yep. I looked outside and I was like, oh, and then I texted Uriah and he's like, you need to cancel the ride. It's like trails are mush.
Oh yeah.
And I told Aaron, I'm like, if we're going to be good trail stewards, we need to not go.
Or just go do laps in Leopard's Loop.
We could do that, or we could go to Rail Yard or something. I guess we could have done that. You're right.
Could have gone to Rails, yeah, but it's just not the same.
It's not the same. You know,
actually, back up. This is going to be the first time we didn't meet formally, but the first time I ever saw you
was at Rail Yard in 2016.
Was that no, not in 2016. It was at Rail Yard in November of 2020.
Oh yeah.
When you were there with Rich Drew, I already knew who Rich was.
Okay, yeah, we were doing a little film. Yeah,
and that was cool to see that.
That last jump on the intermediate line is like perfect for the bike.
Some of the jumps are pretty. The bike is long.
The bike is long. Yeah, and so it's with that bike. It's either or. If you get a short poppy jump like that jump is, where because it's so front heavy, and that jump puts me straight in the air, and then the front end just drops. So it's like a short poppy jump.
Oh.
Or a long, very not poppy jump where it just takes tons of speed and it's all trajectory. It's like either or. Anything in the middle is really tough. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's fun. Okay, so
I was at the Rail Yard that day because it was like kind of like
it was raining.
It was shitty weather.
It was wet.
The day before, my buddy and I went and spent the day up at Little Sugar, and like we kind of come down. I mean, it was the end of November, so you kind of got to expect something, right? But
yeah.
We still were avoiding the upper Midwest snow and cold.
Yep. That trip is what landed me here and why I'm here. Yeah, because I got connected with Gary Vernon and Hogan Kosis.
Hey, Gary was at the Rail Yard that day.
Yep. So they were there, and I made a few videos, and they decided they want to really work on their adaptive bike infrastructure.
Yeah. Should we transition into that?
We can do whatever you want. I mean, we were getting pretty deep there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, let me finish that thought.
Yeah, you do need to.
And so, like, deciding with life being short, and the way I worded it in the talk, I kind of paraphrased a commencement speech that Bill Gates gave like a long time ago. The way I say I want to give him credit because I got it from him. You know, The way I say it though, like I'm 45 years old. It's gone by in a flash. The next 45 probably going to be a flash too, if not faster. And before I know it, there's going to be a 90-year-old man looking back in the mirror at me. And like, if I haven't, I've got a pretty ambitious bucket list. There's a lot I want to do. There's all these rad little corners of the world to explore, And if I haven't done those things, I'm probably going to be pretty disappointed with myself or bummed that I didn't like take advantage of my opportunities or do what I want with my life, and whether I make it to 90 or not, like I'm about to go on a big road trip. Something happens on the road trip. Or, if I find out I have cancer in 15 years or so, which all those things are very highly likely, whether I live to 90 or not, like it's all short, so figuring out and deciding and defining what those things are that we want to complete in our lives, that we want to experience is really important. And then hopefully they are hard to achieve, because if they're not, then what the fuck does your life mean anyways, and then if they're hard to achieve, okay, that means this is where I get into like, this doesn't mean like party your ass off and enjoy life in that way, which whatever, if that's what you want to do, that's all, I want to support that, you know what I mean? But like for me in my life, it means coming up with a plan, figuring out the things I need to do every day to get to there. And that's what I mean about like living life now and do what you love. Do the little things every day to check your bucket list off. That's it. That's what I mean when I say that.
Yeah. And embrace that journey.
That's right. Because what we find out is it doesn't matter whether we get to the top of Bloody or not. It's like all those people, those relationships that I built with that crew. We camped overnight at 10,000 feet and shot off fireworks. We're drinking whiskey and shot off fireworks. Like that was what it was all about. Those journey. Experiences,
Yeah.
Waking up in the fucking hospital in the morning.
That wasn't on the trailer, by the way. So I haven't seen that part yet.
But like, at the time it sucked, but like, it's all about the story. It's just a great part of the story. I feel like the story wouldn't be as good if I didn't end up in the hospital. You know what I mean?
Sure. No, but yeah, it's, and I think you hear this a lot with like Olympic athletes and that, like, it's like once you accomplish this thing that you do, it's like, okay, now what? And really, you got to look back at like, you really got to embrace the journey, whatever that journey is of getting there, because, when you accomplish that, it's, and I fully am a firm believer that once you check that bucket list thing off, it's start the next journey right away.
Yep.
Yep. So that's it's an incredible thing. It really
it's motivating
is.
Me because I struggle. I struggle with motivation. I'm not a naturally motivated guy.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not. I'm tired. I'm physically and emotionally tired.
Yeah.
Life is a fight for someone who's a paraplegic or someone who's paralyzed. And I say that knowing how lucky I am. I have quadriplegic friends, and their life is much more of a fight than mine is. But still, it's still whatever. Being a paraplegic is still hard, And then I always got my constant negative chatter and anxiety swirling around in my mind, and that is exhausting,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I have to fight through all that stuff still, and I wake up tired, and I I survive on copious amounts of caffeine to get
Yeah.
me through my days, and
I think almost everybody has that negative self-talk, and to recognize that and to have that awareness about it is such a huge thing. To know that that's a thing. I
mhm.
didn't know it was a thing before, like, and in the last, I mean, I've grown so much just in the last 2 to 3 years, and having that awareness about that type of stuff. Like that's actually one thing that my girlfriend has taught me more than anyone.
Is it dying again? It died? These are the new batteries.
They're the Enduro batteries.
I mean, maybe time's just flying, but
We're an hour and 30 minutes in.
okay. It seemed like
So the
the
first one went probably an hour if I had to guess.
and the second one was shorter.
It was half
Wow.
that.
Okay.
Obviously, if you do the math.
Oh wait, I gotta.
You
Yeah,
gotta,
with
you
the
gotta take
media
nut off.
mod to change the battery, you gotta do. Which I don't really need the media mod actually because we're gonna be using your sound. So I use the media mod for light and for the for the shotgun mic.
Yeah,
But we will have that as backup sound if there is an
correct.
issue with yours at all. So maybe I'll continue to use the media mod.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's really maybe because it's warm. The camera's really warm. Maybe it's tired.
Which is weird because it's not warm.
I'm
not
warm.
Not the
I've
camera.
got my brand new
Patagonia.
jacket. I just got this thing. Oh my god, this jacket has been like a
No, just the temperature in here. It's not like it's sunny and 75 in Bentonville today.
right. I'm
It
definitely
was on Tuesday though.
I'm definitely comfortable though. Are you uncomfortable?
No, I'm good.
Okay. This jacket has been like a thing over the past few years. Like I've been wanting a dark blue. I love dark blue. I don't know if you can tell that from my house. The dark blue cabinet. Whoa, that battery's boiling hot.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah.
Because it truly isn't in a temperature environment.
Yeah, these cameras are doing so much, dude.
You
This
know?
thing is doing a lot. This little thing is so cool and complicated.
Yeah, I remember when like original helmet cams were like a wired thing to a camcorder.
Oh my god, right?
Like,
That's my neighbor. But like, yeah, if you watch some of my first videos, like the footage is so shaky and terrible. And these, I mean, cameras have just come such a long way. The fact that you can shoot 4K 120 with like crazy stabilization, like crazy slow mo, 4K with like ultra stabilization. That's insane that they can do that,
yeah, and you got to wonder what's going to be available in even 3 years from now.
right? Or that the government has already.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be available from GoPro.
Oh, I angled it a little bit. Okay. That's a pretty good angle.
Yeah.
It might not be the exact same, but okay, where were we?
We're coming out of
Do what you love.
living life, doing what you love, and
Yeah.
and that.
At that, I need another beer.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that part definitely.
Are you okay on your cider?
I'm good. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not halfway through my second cider. I'm not a huge drinker. It's
I'm
probably
normally not
because
either,
of
but I'm having
college.
a good time.
Well, I mean,
Well,
like-
that was an hour and a half of, and we were hanging out probably for 20
maybe 20
minutes
minutes before we came in the van. Yeah.
So that's almost 2 hours, 2 beers.
Well, your college experience and my college experience were polar opposites.
Oh yeah. You party like crazy.
I fully embraced that aspect of college.
Were you in a fraternity?
I was.
Ah.
But let's be clear, because there's always the negative misconception about that.
Yeah.
It was a local fraternity, not a national fraternity. There's a difference.
I don't know the difference.
It means there's
One's
just,
local,
like,
one's
it's-
national.
One is just where it is, and that's it. There's nothing
One's
else.
like kind of a corporation.
One is like, yeah, one has got
guessing.
very different ideals. But I will tell you, so the best, and I'm not even exaggerating. The best way to explain the fraternity that I was in was literally the living version of Animal House.
Oh, okay.
I'm not even kidding you.
That
I'm
is
not
scary.
I'm not kidding you.
That scares me.
It
The
was-
thought of that scares me.
It is not a fraternity anymore, unfortunately, because it was kicked off campus more than once. Not while I was there, but in more recent years. I was there from 96 to 2000. So that was...
You know, if you have to say something is not gay, then it probably is. I'm just sorry. My imagination's running what happens in fraternity hazing and stuff.
It wasn't... We didn't do that. We didn't... I mean, and I guess if you really liked partying and playing foosball, there's a lot of foosball playing.
Okay, a lot of flip cup and stuff
there was
like that.
like,
Or
well,
what?
we had it was this, what was it? I didn't play it much because I just liked hanging out and drinking.
I picture
But
like
we had beer dye tournaments. There's like beer, which is a weird game of like, it's like a 4x8 sheet of plywood essentially that has like cups in the corners, and you throw your dye, and it turns into a mess.
so a bunch of like creative
that are
drinking games.
that are on, the table that makes that 4x8 table is a couple half barrels underneath it to prop it up. Like
Got it.
Like I remember when I was a freshman in college, like it was homecoming weekend, and for those that know, it's UW Stout, University of Wisconsin Stout,
Okay.
major beer drinking college. Like it's in Wisconsin, and it's pretty much named after a beer, a style of beer. I was watching one of the alumni, because the alumni always used to love to come back and party because they were like living real lives, and then they could come back and live their college life.
Oh my
for a
God, they're
weekend.
so Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. And
They keep getting older, but you stay the same age.
that's exactly it. And I remember the one alumni was like out front wasted. It was like 2 PM. He was trying to kick a football through the main living room picture window from outside the house. Like,
Okay.
I'm like, what are you trying to do? Like, just destroy the house? Like, really? And that's really what it was. Like, and to this day, I have still a good friend, and this is super weird too. Like, he was a roommate of mine in college, and in college, he didn't like mountain biking, didn't have anything to do with mountain biking. Instead, he was a bull rider.
Oh, that's gnarly.
Yeah. But since then, he's moved up, pretty much since he moved up into the UP, and for those from the upper Midwest, that's the upper peninsula of Michigan. And from those from Bentonville actually probably know what that is to some regard, because that's where Rock Solid Trail Contractors is based out of.
Oh, okay. Very cool. I like those guys are awesome.
And so this is a part that I may cut out of the podcast interview, but maybe not. It'll at least be on
No, you
camera.
can't cut it out.
But we were like we totally randomly crossed paths up in Copper Harbor during the Fat Tire Trails Festival back in, it was probably 2016 or 16 probably. And like he had become a mountain biker. He'd gotten huge into mountain biking. And
Your
he
bull
was,
rider friend.
yeah, like doesn't ride bulls, got it huge into mountain biking, was always Luke. He was always doing his thing, which was not appropriate pretty much ever.
Okay. Can relate.
But he became a mountain biker. And so to see him, like I was a mountain biker when we were roommates. So in the 90s, I was, but he saw the light, I guess you could say.
Saw the light.
And we were sitting there having a conversation at the trail festival, which in the Copper Harbor Fat Tire Trail Festival is a pretty awesome weekend. They have really good bands, really good mountain biking. It's just a good festival to go to. It's what I consider probably one of the best, like homegrown, like organic, if you want to say that, mountain bike festivals. And my buddy was standing next to me as Luke was telling me about, he's like, yeah, I got divorced. Like, college was cool, but like today it is so much better because they have things like Tinder and IUDs. And my buddy's sitting there going, who the hell is this guy?
Okay, I know what Tinder is, but I don't know what an IUD is.
Well, it's basically a birth control that gets implanted up in a certain place.
Got you. All right, so he was having a good time, is what he's saying.
He was still living his college dream. Only apparently it was way easier.
So you're saying he's a man whore?
Yeah, he is.
I'm a retired man whore.
Yeah. It's just like, it's super funny. But yeah, and like since then, like it's so crazy. Like I'll run into him in the most random spots. I ran into him, it was just this last September. I was he lives in Marquette, Michigan now. And Marquette is a fabulous mountain biking community. It's like the original mountain biking community for the Midwest. They were doing shit that they were doing in Whistler, like tall skinnies and stuff.
Oh, right.
In Marquette at the same time. It's just that it wasn't Whistler, so nobody really knew about it.
Got you.
you know, and so it's a pretty awesome mountain bike. Early lift access stuff. They had Red Bull competitions there back in the late '90s. It's a cool place. But I was up there for the Margie Gessick, which is a super long ultra endurance mountain bike race in this last September. And I was super fortunate to be staying at a house with the people that own the bike shop where I live, that they always rent this house right on Lake Superior. And it's right by the lighthouse. It's super beautiful. And I got up that morning and I'm like, oh, it's early. I'm going to go walk the rocky shores of Lake Superior and just, you know, take in the sunrise. There's like no one else out there except for my buddy Luke.
You ran into each other randomly.
Just like,
what the hell?
so like my college nickname was Chopper. And I'm like standing there, like watching this, all of a sudden, like over like the shoulder from like 20 feet away, I'm like, hey Chopper, what's up? And I'm like, what in that? Like, I know you live in Marquette, but like, what is like, and we didn't know each other were going to be there, you know?
That's awesome. How did you get the nickname Chopper?
Oh, because in the 90s, well, because I had these freaking huge sideburns.
You had chops.
And then I was probably the only person near my fraternity that thought mountain biking was rad. Because this was like 1996.
So people, you ride your chopper?
Yeah,
or no?
They were making fun of it, but yeah.
Okay, got you.
But I had these huge sideburns. I was one of those kids like in high school, like even though I was super young for my class, like I was growing facial hair really young.
Oh.
You know, so when I went to college, like I'd turned 18 I was 17 when I graduated high school, so my birthday was in the summer in July, and I had these huge sideburns. Like I was the kid in high school that could go buy beer for others
because you had facial hair.
Because I had big facial hair, and I was the people I was buying beer for, even though it was still illegal, were older. They were older than me because they looked younger than me.
Oh, but they weren't 21 either, though. Got you. Okay.
No, they just looked younger, and we had a couple places that we could buy beer at in high school, and
I couldn't grow sideburns until I was like 21.
I had huge sideburns in high school.
So stoked. I was like, I actually grow sideburns now.
Yeah,
but they're like red. I have a red beard.
How did we get there?
College stories, fraternity, drinking college.
Oh yeah, because I was the opposite of you. You did not drink in college, and and even post college, like I lived. For those that know La Crosse, Wisconsin, it is a serious beer drinking community. At one point, was in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most bars in one city block.
Oh.
And to this day, still, they have the world's largest six-pack.
What is this? What is the largest six-pack?
The world's largest it is full of beer, and it's like these huge silos. The best way to describe it is these huge silos full of beer. In La Crosse, if you're a product of the 80s and maybe the early 90s, we had this super popular beer called Old Style. And Old Style in the G. Highland Brewing Company at one point was the third, well, maybe large too, but still today. But at one point, it was the third largest brewery in the nation, behind Anheuser-Busch and Miller. You know, and it went.
All right.
You know, so the beer, like they'd brew beer and store it in these, like, literally like 3-story tall silos, and there was just, you know, we got to make them round, and we might as well make them 3x2.
Gotcha.
So it looks like the world's largest six-pack, and then painted it like the beer cans. And it's still there today. It's still a brewery. It's gone through a bunch of different iterations, and I think they brew more beer now than they ever have, but it's now all contract brewing, because what a lot of people don't know is that some of these really high-end beer companies aren't actually beer companies, they're marketing companies.
Yeah.
And then they have someone else brew their beer, and so this brewery now just does tons of contract brewing and energy drinks too.
Contract brewing. Yeah.
You know, like
got you.
Like Monster Energies and stuff like that. Like I mean, from a distribution standpoint, it makes sense to like not have to ship it across the country.
Right.
Why not have regional contract brewers make this stuff so distribution is less?
I want to make my own beer. I should talk to a big brewery like that or something.
The JP McGhee?
The JP McGhee or something. The Unpavement Session IPA.
The JPM IPA?
Yeah. I actually, my good friend and he just left. he was the master brewer at Port Brewing Company. And we were talking about doing one, and he had done a beer in the past, and we were talking about redoing it for me, and he called it San Diego.
Oh yeah.
San Diego. I was like, we're gonna do the San Diego session IPA, and it's gonna be awesome, but we never did it. I want to do something like that though.
Let's get back on track and talk mountain bikes.
Yeah.
This is when we're gonna get into the nerd mode of this episode.
Okay, let's get nerdy. You want to talk about gear?
I want to talk about the evolution of adaptive mountain bikes and your evolution,
man.
and how Jeremy he knows way more about this than I do, but I would assume, and we're going to get to this later, but I would assume that the e-bike has played a crucial role.
Game changer, man.
In this whole thing.
Game changer.
And people bagging e-bikes.
A lot less.
Yeah,
people bag on e-bikes.
A lot less now.
Yeah.
But like I from day one, the first time I ever saw an adaptive mountain bike with an e-bike motor on it, I was like, holy shit.
You're like, duh.
It's like the most logical thing I've seen.
It's so logical. Yes. Yeah. Well,
but let's go back to like
early
mountain bikes for you, and even in general. For adaptive mountain bikes, and to kind of, because I remember in your speech the other night, you're like, I could climb a wall with my first mountain bike, but it had no suspension.
Did you happen to go to the concurrent session that I taught yesterday morning?
I didn't. I was actually doing another podcast.
I shared a photo of one of the first downhill chairs. My buddy Matt Feeney. I think he lives in like the Denver area now. He lived in Winter Park forever. And he's in a chair, and he's just a gorgeous specimen of a man. And I've got this posted this photo it's so rad. It's a wheelchair. God, I don't even know how to explain it in words. I'll have to post the photo or something. It's basically a wheelchair with two handles that steer two probably like 12-inch wheels on each side.
Well, is it what, back in the 90s, what John Davis would race in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So you can probably picture it. I don't know if viewers can picture it. Maybe in the video on YouTube, I'll post a photo. So listeners on other that are listening to this, I don't know how to explain it. But it's basically a wheelchair that he's going downhill in with like a little bit bigger front wheels. Fucking death-defying. He's got like a full face helmet on and like just sunglasses and like screaming down the mountain. That's kind of how downhill adaptive bikes started, like downhill wheelchairs. And obviously what we're riding now is like the progression has been insane. And so everything in between there has been pretty crazy for me. When I first got my first adaptive mountain bike, it was the same body position as this bike I have now, where it's kind of a forward position. Well, it sounds like a World War II fighter plane flying over.
It probably is. We're in Bentonville. Have you met the Waltons?
It's one of the Walton boys showing off as per usual. But so this first bike, completely rigid, zero suspension whatsoever, but was like relatively small. Like this thing I ride is kind of a monster. And it seriously had this, it has what's called and it had two of these, what's called a Schlumpf mountain drive. If you don't know what that is, it's basically you push a button on the side of the crank and it accesses a whole other set of gears, granny gears, like super uber granny gears. And so it had two chains and they meet at an intermediary hub. And in that hub, there's another Schlumpf mountain drive. So a whole other set of granny gears.
So you can go granny.
You go granny on granny, which is exponential granny, right?
It's granny squared.
Granny squared. Yeah. Granny cubed, granny squared. I don't
know. You're the math guy. I'm not the math guy.
Like, this thing could just be, you can go granny and like this thing would just be inching along, but you could seriously like inch up a wall with one arm. Like it's such grainy gears. So all that to explain, it could climb anything, no matter what. And if you get like stuck in a situation, it was still an external. Was it an external drivetrain or was it an internal hub? I can't remember if it was an internal geared hub or an external drivetrain. It's been that long. 2007, I got that bike, and but anyway, it could climb anywhere. I was taking it on adventures, like taking my dog out walking just along random fire roads, and it was pretty awesome. But I mean, I started taking it on the bike park right away. I remember I took it down Kamikaze, no suspension. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think that's the first trail I ever rode actually on that bike was Kamikaze. And then, there's a black tech trail called Shotgun at Mammoth. Yeah. And it's a lower mountain, shorter run. And that's those are the trails in that area are the trails you ride like early season, when the rest of the mountain, like the lower mountains melted out, but not the upper mountain yet. So all the lower mountain trails, that's where Shotgun is. And so my buddy took me over there. He's like, "Oh, there's this trail called Shotgun," and he's like, "You're gonna love it." So I took my rigid bike down this tech trail, and there's staircase drops. And of course I fucking rode it hard, and we did 2 laps on it. My back was just jarred. I was like, oh my God, that hurts. And my buddy was like, well, you need suspension. I was like, well, why did you take me on this trail then?
Then let's get suspension. Come on.
So I quickly learned that I needed suspension, and I sold that bike and bought this 4-wheel
downhill bike
with no drivetrain. So in those days, that was the choice. Either you have a bike that can climb anything or a bike that can basically downhill anything, And it's funny how I bought this bike. This guy that owned it, I had met him in Mammoth. He had brought his bike to Mammoth to ride, and I saw it, and I talked to him, and we got to be friends. He lived in Pismo, and his bike was just sitting in his garage. He wasn't riding. I had seen him for years. And I told him, I was like, hey, look, I will give you $6,000. And when you come to Mammoth, you can use your bike whenever you want. Like sold him on it. He was so hesitant, but I talked him into selling me his bike. He sold it to me because those things weren't made. You couldn't get one,
Yeah.
They're so rare. And I talked him into selling me his bike, and he still never came up to use it.
Really?
Yeah. That was the selling point, and he still never came up to use the bike. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Well,
but that bike, my friends called it the Land Spider trophy truck because it had like 18 inches of suspension each wheel, each A-arm. And what that thing could go over was insane. But no drivetrain. I'm an adventurer. I want to be out in nature, and my friends were pushing me. We'd go do these rides, and I felt so bad for them. Like they were pushing me. They were, towing me behind cars. Oh my God. My roommate one time was towing me behind my 4Runner down this dirt road, and the strap snapped. And so we had to shorten it. So it was super short. So I'm basically like right behind the car.
Oh God.
And we have the back hatch open. So I could see him clearly. He's driving like I am scared out of my fucking mind. He's mobbing. I know we were going over 40. I think we were going like 45, which in a bike is death-defying fast, And it's just, I can't see anything that's coming because there's a car right in front of me. And if he stops, I got to be ready on the brakes. I don't think
when he is.
I don't think I could stop in time, And I look, and he's just driving one hand, just like chugging a beer, just like driving 45, 50. Oh my God. And then I actually moved back to San Diego with that bike. And, that bike's kind of like bike park only, And so I was just sitting there. I wasn't really using it. And I was really wanting to find a way to get out onto the beach myself, and so I was researching off-road wheelchairs and like beach wheelchairs and things like that. And I see this picture of this bike. I'm like, what is this thing? And one click leads to another. And I end up on this manufacturer's website that builds these bikes that I ride now. And it was the first bike with both suspension and a drivetrain. So I could ride the bike park and take the drops and jumps and rock gardens and all that stuff, but also venture into the backcountry and climb and pedal and get my heart rate up and exercise outdoors. I was like, oh my God, this is like a life-changing thing, I think. So I found a buyer for that four-wheel bike right away. And I got a grant for $1,500 from the Challenge Athletes Foundation. And I had a friend give me $1,500 to help. So I had the money from the bike plus the $3,000. I had $9,800 in my bank account after all that. And the bike was $9,400. And I wrote the check, man. I had $400 left, and I had no job, no income, or anything at the time.
This is where we circle back to the part, do what you love.
Right? And sometimes you just got to take that step. You got to take that dive into the deep end, and just do what's best for your life. I was very astute at living minimally. I knew, and $400 was still a lot of money to me at the time, and I had actually just come from like pretty much being homeless and gone through a really gnarly time in my life. I was just coming out of that. And so, I mean, $400 to me was I still felt kind of rich with $400 in my account, honestly. But looking back, I'm like, what the fuck? That is just a crazy decision. So I bought that bike, and you don't get it. I mean, I'm proud to say that we have a 6 to 8 month build time right now. I'm very proud to say that in the current climate, which most bikes is a year or more.
Yeah, nobody has that right now.
And these are very complicated bikes at that. The manufacturer's done a really good job at like buying parts in bulk ahead of time. So that's why all our bikes are like, you got to pay in advance, and it sucks, but it just is what it is. And we had to raise prices and things, but
everybody did. That's not like
everybody did.
It's inflation. Yeah. That's where we're
But
living.
You'd be surprised. People don't understand that. You'd be surprised. But, so at that time it was like 6 months. And so I dropped $9,400 that's all the money I had basically.
And you didn't have your current bike either now.
No, I had no bike. Nothing. And I got to wait 6 months now. Oh my God. So I just like, oh my God. I mean, the poor guy, the poor salesman, I was like, anywhere. And now like people email me, and like, I have to remind myself of how I felt at that time, because I'll get frustrated. I'm like, oh my God, this guy, like I told him 8 months and it's been 3 weeks. But and so I try to tell people like, just go to the gym, man. Get the energy out. So I bought this bike and I got it. And I put it together for the first time, and I started riding this thing, and I started, I was in San Diego at the time. I took it in the canyon that I grew up exploring as a child with my little brother, that same canyon that we talked about at the beginning of the conversation, where I'd get poison oak every day.
And the ice plants.
Yeah, exactly. Taking it through these trails, and my life got completely changed. Like, life in a wheelchair is relegated to the pavement, and now is off the pavement. And my range is extended. Like, this bike is freedom. And that's kind of how it started. And then so that bike was fully manual, totally analog bike.
So no e-bike, no
No
pedal assist.
no power assist.
At what point did it go? Did the industry go pedal assist?
That bike actually had the option for an assist.
Okay.
At that time, and wow, what year was that? I want to say maybe it was like,
I mean, it's new, and pedal assist is
I want to
new
say it's
across the board.
2013,
Yeah,
2013, 2014, maybe. No, power assist was a thing then.
At one point, it was just hubs.
But I was, yeah. It was just a hub motor.
Yeah.
Hub motor. And then the mid drive came in right about that time, you know, and but I was super anti. So the thing, it's a spinal cord injury community thing. Like, it's like, if you're a quadriplegic, you need a power chair. If you're a paraplegic, you have a manual chair. It's kind of like, and I was young, dude. I was in my 20s, so I don't think like this anymore. But like at that time, it was like, I'm a paraplegic. I'm not a quadriplegic. I don't need anything power. You know, I have, you know.
I see. You know, it's a similar but different parallel of like when e-bikes just came out in general, where people were like, I don't want these e-bikes.
I don't need that. I'm strong. I'm young. I don't need that.
But it's a totally different thing though. It doesn't.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I've seen the difference, like what it can mean for, you know, anybody, like in Mammoth, basically. Like, my boys there, like one of my best friend there, he got an e-bike, and like, cause I make him, riding the gondola and like loading the chair with my bike and everything, you know, there's a lot of logistics involved in that. So once I had a bike with an e-assist, I started just climbing the service. Once I started climbing the service roads,
Kamikaze.
I've climbed Kamikaze.
Yeah,
I have. And it's not bad with the e-assist, you know? And I started climbing the service roads, and it's so much better of an experience.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do as many laps, you know? I'll maybe do, like, the max I'll do is like 6 laps on the bike park. But Mammoth Bike Park, I mean, 1 lap is like all day.
For those that don't know Mammoth, it's pretty high.
Yeah.
Like,
and the trails are long.
It goes above tree line.
The trails are really long. You know, it's not like here where it's, you know, the trails are awesome and you can lap them, but you know, relatively short, you know. They're like,
and you're at sea level.
1 lap is like half the day, you know. You're at sea level here?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
That's what I mean. There's that's 11. What I'm saying. Like, you can breathe here.
Yeah.
You know, like that, the whole Mammoth is a different animal.
It's a whole other animal.
For anybody.
And so my buddy, he got an e-bike, and he started climbing the service roads with me. And then a lot of other people in town, like rippers, like we're talking some of the best downhill mountain bikers you'll ever see.
Yeah.
Are riding e-bikes.
Yeah.
A lot of downhill guys are now, a lot of downhill riders, guys and girls, could you just climb the service road, and they, you know, same suspension. It's a full downhill cush bike, you know, but with a, you know, you don't have to ride the lift anymore, basically.
Yeah. Well, we've gone into the fact that on this podcast that now there's bike parks being built in places that can't be shuttleable and don't have lift access because of e-bikes.
Done. It's so much better. You're actually getting exercise. You're sitting on a lift. You're not getting exercise. You're riding an e-bike up the hill. You're getting exercise, you know?
Yeah.
And he told me, he showed me like his heart rate was like through the roof. He's like, dude, I'm getting an amazing amount of exercise. I'm just going further and faster. He's like, I'm cranking just as hard, you know? He's like, I can get up to speed faster, but like, yeah. So that my friends in Mammoth have kind of shown me like what an e-bike can mean for the able-bodied community, you know, and that it's rad. It's a good thing, I think. As long as there's like proper education and proper trail stewardship, because you can rip apart a trail with all that power, you know?
Yeah.
So
and I don't know, people, early on with e-bikes, and I will say, like, I was kind of an anti-e-bike person from the perspective of, like, we've already had to sell mountain bikes to people in general for access, and now we're going to sell mountain bikes that maybe have a motor for access. But I quickly flipped that narrative in my mind when I came to the realization that access is access, and people can be assholes on analog bikes just as much as they can be assholes on e-bikes, and it's not the tool, it's the person,
Wow, that's well said. That's very well said.
you know?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. There's Strava holes out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't, the bike isn't doing it. It's the person doing it.
100%. 100%.
So
I'm definitely all for e-bikes, obviously. The one thing that happens in the adaptive world, though, is these guys are going, and I don't want to judge anybody. Like, everybody can do whatever they want to do as long as they're not hurting anybody and causing damage and being like good stewards, you know. But for me, like and what I want to do, I want to go regular mountain bike speed.
mm-hmm.
I want to pace with my friends.
You want that experience.
I want a mountain bike experience, not like this moto experience, you know? So I'll set my assist level to pace who I'm with. And when I ride with other adaptive riders with power assist, I have to bump my power way up to keep up. They just have the power way up and they're just zipping around at e-bike speed, like faster than mountain bike speed. And whatever, you know, that's their thing, but that's kind of a tough one for me and why I don't ride with like other adaptive riders very often, because I don't want to go that like extra speed, you know?
Yeah.
I will bump up my power in a downhill situation when I need speed for like features and jumps and things like that.
Yeah.
Or if I know there's like a crazy technical climb with ledges that I'm going to need a little extra power to get up. But that's kind of the one thing that I may be a little uncomfortable with the e-bike situation is it becoming kind of a more of a moto, like in between mountain biking and moto world, you know? And I don't want to be in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
It's the whole, I guess they're calling it e-adventure, the whole e-adventure category. And there's a lot of adaptive bikes that are throttle only. There's no hand crank. It's 100% completely electric. And it looks really fun, and it is really fun. And I'm sure there is an element of exercise in that. You know, you're still using your body and all that, but that's not really my thing. Like it's actually really come a long way with the whole e-adventure category.
One of the things I want to definitely hit on with you is you have the unpavement, but before that, you travel a lot. Like, what are some good destination location or trail locations that allow you to do what you do? Because I know I was listening to another podcast that you had done with Nat Ross for here in Bentonville, and you were talking about going to Sedona and how Sedona is like a really not good place to go because of some of the limitations on some of the trails.
Well, yeah, Sedona's in one of those next level places, but West Sedona, is very doable for adaptive riders. And I spend a lot of time
over by Mezcal.
Yes, Mescal's not a good trail.
Okay, but that neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay.
Like Erie, Coxcomb, Dawa, all those trails right there. Deadman's, is it called? Deadman's, I think. That's all really, really good. And I've figured out like some loops.
Yeah.
Like everything's always out and back. And I've been able to figure out some loops for adaptive riders. And I'm actually, next time I go out there, I'm pretty sure, I'm very curious about a really big loop. And I'm pretty sure I can put it together. So next time I go out there, I'm going to put together, I'm going to go grab my boy and go ride this bigger loop that I'm pretty sure will work. I've kind of like pieced it together little by little over the years. And I think this will. And so West Sedona is definitely a good spot for adaptive riders to go to. And I've got my suggested routes on Trail Forks for that. And I've just started to figure out some stuff in Moab. Moab's another one of those next level places where I just have been trying to figure out what I can ride solo, and there's not much, because majority of a trail might be good, but there'll just be like a couple spots where you need help or whatever, and then you're stuck. So Moab's one of those places. But a place that I have found that there is it's not the most exciting place to ride, but it's beautiful and it's fun, and you can ride from camp. And there's endless mileage of trails that are all completely adaptive friendly, is McDowell Mountain Regional Park in outside of Phoenix.
Okay.
That place is awesome. I mean, any adaptive rider can go there and just have a really good time. And it's just endless riding. And like I said, it's not exciting. I mean, it's all cross country, relatively flat trails, but it's endless and it's beautiful. Yeah. And it's so nice to not have to break down camp or drive anywhere.
For sure.
All the trails are accessible out of the campground. So I always tell people to go there.
I mean, that's the great thing with IMBA's campaign of more trails close to home.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had actually the show that came out today is with the guy that lives in Park City, and Park City's motto is "My garage is my trailhead," which is easily doable here in Bentonville as well. I mean, you live right down the road from Kohler.
Not just down the road, but across the street, pretty much.
Yeah.
I think it's 270 yards to the entrance right there. It's so nice, dude. It is so nice. And now that they've redone Esther's, and I can ride Esther solo now. There's still a couple spots where not every rider can do it, but not every adaptive rider can do it. But that is kind of like my just get some quick exercise, because I just need to get out late in the day. It's 4 miles. I think it's 4.5 miles round trip from here, but I'll come back and it'll be 35 minutes. Sun will just have gone down. I'm like, oh, I feel so much better about myself to just get out for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that trail's perfect. It's right across the street.
And we're going to go into that part of life in a little bit. But before we do that, I may or may not have been there, but I know this is a trail system that's really iconic on the East Coast and has been making a really strong push into adaptive mountain biking and making sure a good majority of what they have to offer is adaptive friendly, and that's Kingdom Trails in Vermont.
I've never heard of it.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. So they have I know you've heard of this. There's the Kelly Brush Foundation.
Yep, I know them. I work closely. They buy a lot of bikes for people.
Yeah. So yeah. Kelly Brush Foundation, they've gotten grants from Kelly Brush Foundation, which is Kingdom Trails in Vermont and East Burke, Vermont, is also home to a really iconic ski academy, which is the Burke Ski Academy. That's for those that know ski racing, even for those that don't know ski racing in modern years, they probably have heard of Michaela Schifrin.
Oh, yeah.
Michaela Schifrin, that was, even though they claim Vail, that was the ski academy she went to, was Burke Mountain Academy.
Well, all the best ski racers seem like they come from the East Coast.
Yeah.
Because they grew up skiing ice.
Yeah, it's and that's what people normal people don't get, that a good ski racing course, World Cup courses are basically ice rinks.
Yep.
Because it has to be consistent for everybody. And how do you make it consistent? There's literally times where they open up a fire hose and
no, thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, so East Burke, Vermont, so they've worked with the Kelly Brush Foundation, and they've also worked with other adaptive athletes to make, and what they found, because they have, one of the things that Kingdom Trails is known for is really good dirt and not any rocks, which is pretty not normal in our world. Even for the East Coast, it's not right. East Coast is known for being rocky.
Right.
And they don't have, that's actually one of their deficits is rocks. And so what they found when they started bringing adaptive athletes out to their trails is that they only had a couple choke points and different things that they had to change, maybe bridge widths.
Yep.
You know, stuff like that.
Yep.
And they could put big loops together out there. And I just had Abby Long, who's the executive director of the Kingdom Trails, on the podcast a couple episodes ago, and they're looking at it not only from a trails perspective, but also how do we make sure and bear in mind, Eastbrook, Vermont has 900 people living in it, so it's pretty small.
Got you.
But it's one of the most iconic places in the Northeast, if not the country, for mountain biking. And so she's making sure that people that have like Airbnbs or bed and breakfasts, that they have, the right facilities for adaptive people, for adaptive athletes to be able to get, so it's not just the trails, it's the whole experience, like making sure you have a place to park, the stuff
thing.
yeah. So I will say, in your bucket list of places to go,
I was gonna say,
you need, for mountain bike destinations at least, you need to look at Kingdom Trails.
Oh, 100% sounds like. I haven't been on the East Coast for a long time. I mean, last time I was in Vermont was in 2014 when we were touring with the video.
Yep.
And then my ex's family has family in Virginia, and we visited them. That's had to have been like 4 years ago now since I've been on the East Coast. So yeah. It's time.
Yeah, and it's real. I mean, there's an EWS race there this year at the ski area, so they have lift access in Eastbrook, and they have over 100 miles of single track, primitive, regular trails. 100% on private land, by the way.
Oh wow,
that's like their big thing. It's actually kind of people that know Kingdom Trails know the story about how they lost some land too, but they did handshake agreements back in the 90s where the residents there knew, like, we want to make this really good for us. And they had an infrastructure issue, because there was so many people coming to Kingdom Trails. We're talking like when they did Nimba Fest, which is the Northeast Mountain Bike Festival there, they'd go from a town of 900 to a town of 4,000 plus people in a weekend.
Right. It's a big event.
That's, and like they say their number 4 customer, I guess you call it a number 4 visitor, is coming out of Quebec, Canada, because they're only like an hour from the Canadian border, and so they're getting a ton of people.
That's how I do. I want to go up there, man. Like, well, you were talking about Lake Superior earlier.
Yeah.
I want to do talking about bucket list, I need to get up to Upper Peninsula and the Upper Lakes into Canada. I really want to go up there. I want to take the van and I want to go up there. I don't even need to ride. I just want to like paddle and like just see it. And then I want to work my way like over, and I want to ferry over to Iceland, ferry the van over to Iceland and like drive and ride around Iceland and just get in that whole area of the world. The Northeast, Vermont, Maine, and maybe even Greenland, like I've never seen that ever. And it just looks so amazing. I know Iceland is a really popular thing right now, but it's obviously popular for a reason because it's gorgeous and an amazing adventure to bike pack around it, I guess, is the thing to do. That'd be cool to do that. Like have somebody drive the van and like just bike pack certain distance every day around the island and like meet at the van every night and party and that. So talking about the East Coast and Vermont and stuff, that's what that makes me think of. I need to spend like a few months, maybe a summer, spend a summer in the van in just the Northeast.
Yeah, I've heard from, and have good knowledge on this from a reputable source, that what they have in Quebec rivals what they have in Whistler.
Okay.
Now everybody has their own opinion on what they like and what they don't like, so take that for what it is. But I've been told that what they have in Quebec City, or just outside of there, is
awesome.
Is on that same scale. It's just not as known, So
no, I've never heard of it.
Bringing it back to lower level, but you do need to go to Copper Harbor.
What's Copper Harbor? I don't even know.
That's where Rock Solid is based out of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
So that's
okay.
like, so if the visual here, people, because I guess we do have a little bit of visual here. I can do this in front.
Oh yeah, we got video, but your listeners won't see this.
Yeah. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan is up above Wisconsin, and there's
the mitten. You got to do the mitten. Yeah.
Well, the mitten is down here, but then you got Wisconsin over here, and Green Bay is right there, right?
Okay, yeah.
But up here in this Upper Peninsula, this is the peninsula, but this is the peninsula above the peninsula.
Yes, that's where I want to go.
That is Copper Harbor.
Okay.
Like, it is a dead end. And they have actually pretty good access, just almost kind of by default, for adaptive mountain biking. Because I sent Lacey Heward up there with some people.
No way.
And
So
she
I
was
should ask
able
her.
to mountain bike. And I got text messages from her and other people like that same day as she was super pumped about how she was able to mountain bike out to the tip of the peninsula. Although I wouldn't do it in late July or you got to do it when the shore flies aren't there because those things are freaking nasty.
Yeah.
Like,
When I said summer, I was like, wait a second, bugs. Yeah.
But yeah, but they have 300 inches of snow right now too.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, you got to go outside of shore fly season. But legitimately, there is some good mountain biking, and Aaron Rodgers from Rock Solid has what's called East Bluff Bike Park that he's built there. East Bluff Bike Park he owns it. It's private land outside of Copper Harbor proper, and he's I think he's been building there now for 3 years, but it's proper bike park stuff. Pretty awesome, and
See, I need to just go on a trip and just like stop at these places for a while.
yeah, and you have to make it a point to go to Copper Harbor because it's a dead end. You don't just pass through. That's kind
It's
of the
on
joke.
the list now.
That's kind of the joke there. It was like, well, when we're passing through, we'll swing by and say hi. And it's like, you don't pass through.
No, you go, and which I'm learning. Like, man, van life is an interesting thing. Like, I was just so the longest before this last trip, the longest I had spent in here is 5 days. And then this last trip was 14 days, and I got pretty uncomfortable. Like towards like day 12, 13, I was like, I was ready for like a full long hot shower, and I felt starting to feel a little gross. I definitely needed to do laundry.
Yeah.
I think I was on my last pair of underwear. And so I'm working up to it. This next trip is going to be a little longer than that. So I leave April 6th and I'll be back April 30th. So that's 24 days in this next trip. And I leave Monday. So I'm working. What I want to do is get to the point where like I'm comfortable, like in a very extended period of time, like 3 months in the van. And I can go and for a trip like that,
Well, the cool thing about Copper Harbor is that there is a handful of campgrounds there, 2 of which are owned by Aaron.
And they have hookups. They have water and electricity. See, if I have water and electricity, then I can just like take long hot showers. I can use the hot water heater.
Yep.
And I can refill my water every day if I need to or whatever. And so that's a lot more comfortable.
I should say Trails End Trails End is still primitive, but there's also there's 4 legit campgrounds in Copper Harbor. One of them being a state park, one of them being actually really nice with hookups. Yeah, it's good there. It's my first time there was in 2011, and I was told before that, like, you got to come to Copper Harbor. And I mean, it's changed the game for me and how I look at trails, because that was the first time I'd ridden the Flow Trail.
Oh.
Which is a flow trail that Aaron built before when he was a volunteer working. He might have been paid at the time, but he was like the president of the Trails Club before he worked for IMBA, before he started Rock Solid Trail Contractors, and that has got probably 550, 600 feet of vertical drop, and it blew my mind because it was a 15-minute downhill. I'm like, we get this much vertical where I live. Why can't we get these downhills? And I went home and started like pushing the agenda.
That's awesome.
Have
you heard of the Santa Cruz Flow Trail?
I think, yes and no.
I've ridden it once. It was several years ago. I want to say like four years ago, maybe even 5. And I'm going to ride it again next week.
So one of my podcast guests is a Marin County resident, Vernon Huffman.
I know Vernon really well.
And Vernon was talking about
aMTB. I'm on the advisory council for aMTB, and Vernon's huge in that. Yeah.
Yes, he is. He was at the table when they sat around at a different conference. Like, why don't we have a statewide organization that just focuses on mountain bike access? Yeah. So Vernon's, like, I've often compared, and I wanted Vernon as a guest, and a success. Like, that's a prime example of this podcast. Like me being able to meet people that I want to ask questions to. Like, he is like he was on my super short list, and I've succeeded at having him on the show because I've often compared Marin County to where I live, La Crosse County, as being the Marin County of the Midwest, with having like horrible access, full on Sierra Club, like battling against you. Wheels don't belong on dirt, like crazy stuff.
Yeah, the whole wilderness, federal wilderness battle. Yeah.
But our wilderness isn't wilderness. It's actually owned by the city. It's like technically city park.
Oh, well,
So
that's
it's like-
different.
that's my
different,
point.
yeah.
Like it's not like in some of its old limestone quarry operations, like 15 years ago, there was dynamite and dozers up here, and you're telling me I can't take a bike in here now? It's
Yeah.
you know, let's
I'm with
let's
you.
kind of get real here. Like I get there, we need to protect
Oh wait,
places.
but horses can go in.
Horses can't go here, but horses that don't even get me started.
Don't
on
even
that.
get me started. 'Cause
I've
their
ridden horse
impact-
trail and it's not fun because
Mm.
it's a big trench. In
I
fact, you
share-
probably have to straddle it.
Yeah, well, we share trails in San Diego,
Yeah.
and the horses destroy the trails, man.
Yes.
Destroy them.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and an adaptive bike, I can't avoid the manure. One wheel is hitting the manure.
I suppose you got multiple points of contact that aren't in line with each other.
But the manure is not the bad part. It's the flies that come
Yes.
with the horses. That's the hard part with them.
Yeah. Well, we're now talking about nature. This is another part that I really wanted to go deep on with you, and that was the eco-psychology.
Yeah.
And the importance of that. And you shared a story at your keynote speech on Tuesday night at the Record in downtown Bentonville about how on one ride you laid in the dirt and how that not changed, but how you felt about that.
Yeah, well, when's the last time you touched the actual earth with your skin?
Not too long ago, because I'm a mountain biker though.
Like you
When's
didn't have you didn't have a glove or shoes on?
I usually wear shoes, but I take gloves off all the time. Yeah,
Okay.
but
But most people
let's rephrase that. So when's the last time most people?
Yeah, when's the last time I'll ask that to listeners and watchers. When's the last time, if you're not a botanist or a trail builder or work in the dirt, when's the last time you actually touched the ground with your bare skin? This is why surfers are so addicted to surfing, because, I mean, when you're in the water, you're completely girded by the earth. You're completely submerged in the earth. The ocean is part of the earth, and the negative ions from that. And, usually some part of your skin is exposed, even if you are wearing wetsuit, but the water is getting into your wetsuit, so the water is actually touching all of your skin. But we rarely ever just touch the planet. And people are like, well, why? Why is that important? For me, the answer is scientifically, I don't know. I don't really understand it. From what I've read and researched and heard, is that it has something to do with the negative ions. But if you think, like, we've only been like a civilized, urban society for a very short part of our existence. So evolutionarily speaking, we have been outdoors for the majority of our existence as a species. And so, God, I can't remember what book it was I read as a kid. But it was a book about a Native American girl that was, adopted into a white family, and like her struggles, like wearing clothes and sleeping in a bed. They would always like find her sleeping on the floor naked, and they would discipline her for it, and it was this whole struggle, and she would like escape and like just to like sleep outside under a tree. And I feel like that is how we naturally are, and like to live in the structures, and on beds, and everything's concrete is unnatural, is obviously very unnatural. And just evolutionarily speaking of how we are, I I hesitate from using the word designed because that implies a conscious designing something, but how time and evolution have designed us to be, you know? And so that's like, I don't understand that. I don't think I ever can or ever will. I'm not really a scientist, but no, I'm not a scientist.
We're not a scientist. We're not lawyers. We're
I'm
we're
a
people.
beer drinking Southern California, yeah, bro. Yeah, that's the opposite of a scientist.
I love to surf.
But I have experiential knowledge of it. I mean, not scientific knowledge of it. And I struggle. I've come to realize that I struggle with a lot of anxiety, a lot of negative chatter, all kinds of shit swirling around my head all the time. And I don't think that that's uncommon. I don't think I'm the only one. And I see all the shit that's happening in the world. And today, like more than any other time, it seems like there's so much division and so much uncertainty and so much hate. I am definitely part of the problem. Hold on to that thought.
We're on GoPro.
GoPro time. GoPro battery.
This is battery 4, I believe we'll be putting in.
This is battery 4.
So just to be clear, you made it an hour.
That battery made it an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. That's good. So
Yeah.
they're different.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
So we're at 2.5 hours now, and we're at 1.5 for the last one.
Okay.
And then 1 for
the
the
second
first
one was short.
Yeah. Yep. That was a half-hour battery.
Are you saving our thought right now?
Well, we're recording it, but yeah, we're talking about yeah.
Okay, this is the last battery.
Yeah, you ended on hate and division.
Hate and division. So, if this battery dies and we're still talking, the YouTube video will be shorter than the audio podcast. But I mean, I guess I could just let the audio file run without the video. I could just put like a picture up or something.
There are some podcasts that actually do that. I haven't done that.
I guess I could do that. I mean, if you guys are enjoying this conversation and want to keep listening and you're listening to it on YouTube, then I guess I could just keep it running if this battery dies on the camera. I mean,
I will say we are now approaching the longest podcast I've recorded ever.
Well, duh. Look who your guest is.
Well, this is going to be funny.
Welcome back.
And this is going to be funny because the first time I ever, and we're going to get back to the hate and division, just that's where we were.
Okay, let me just fix this angle.
The first time I ever thought, I'm like, okay, I want to record a podcast. Who can I have on my podcast because I don't know how to interview people. I've never done this before. And I have a friend, Pete Taylor. Pete, I know you're going to listen to this. He owns a bike shop in Viroqua, Wisconsin called Blue Dog Cycles. Pete is the person that you can say 5 words to, and he'll just go.
It's like pulling a string.
And that's exactly what happened. And the only other person that has came close to Pete is a person you may know, may not know. He's a surfer, lives in Encinitas. He is the editor-in-chief of Free Hub magazine, and his name is Bryce Minnick.
I do not know Bryce, but
you're gonna know
Bryce.
Bryce.
Like I should.
You're gonna know Bryce after this conversation.
If he lives in Encinitas,
because I'm gonna connect you to. So Bryce, when you listen to this, you're gonna be connected to Jeremy probably before this comes out.
Well, Bryce, odds are we've seen each other. If you live in Encinitas and you surf in the area, and we've seen each other. We have to have.
Yeah, he's currently the editor of Free Hub magazine. He was for 15 years the editor of Bike magazine, and before that, he was a correspondent in journalism around the world. Like he spent many, many, many years not inside of the U.S. ever.
Well, hopefully you can connect us, Bryce. I'm always looking for board caddies if you want to go surf.
But Bryce was an awesome interview, super long as well. And this is the Jocko podcast, like type of, or Joe Rogan style, where you go like,
that's the best way,
some
man.
Some of those go for 4
People
hours.
can stop listening or continue to listen if they want. That's what's rad about it.
Yeah.
Like, I have friends that have podcasts and they're like, oh, our listenership falls off after 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, well, like, I think the question to ask is what's going on with the content.
Correct.
Okay, if like, why are you not keeping people's interest? One, but then who cares? Like, just like hang out and have a good time and talk about whatever the hell you want, and people can listen or not. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not analyzing my statistics. Do you?
No.
I don't. I do my podcast and I do my content because I enjoy it,
Yeah.
And there is a need and I'm fulfilling a need, and that's fun and that's awesome, but I'm not like looking at when people stop watching or, if I look at my views, I will probably get depressed, but
yeah, I do know, like, I have looked at numbers a little bit, only in the sense that because this podcast used to be a part of Mountain Bike Radio, which is a bigger network.
Oh, okay.
And in February of 2022, I took it off of Mountain Bike Radio to have it its own solo show.
That's last month.
That was last month. So I'm rebuilding an audience.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot of people that came. I mean, there's a lot of people that came along anyhow, because this is a podcast that gets listened to a lot by, which maybe I shouldn't be surprised, but trail builders as they're on machines building. I was kind of surprised at that when I first found that out, to be honest with you.
Well, trail builders listening, you and nurses are the best people on the planet.
Yeah,
I'm serious, man. Like, nurses, for obvious reasons, are the best people on the planet. Like, and then trail builders, for what they enable us to do, have a relationship with nature safely, is I can't imagine a life without that. So that's why trail builders.
And you've now perfectly brought us back into what we were talking about before the GoPro died.
Yes. So we're living in this crazy freaking world right now with all this hate, division, uncertainty are like the first words that come to mind when I think about everything that's happening with our planet right now. And I feel like and all that is based, like, because, okay, let me say it this way. My first reaction to anything I don't understand is anger.
It's natural.
Yeah. And it's natural for most people. And that's where it ends, with the anger. We don't understand something, we get angry. And for me, that's because I've constantly got all this horse shit like swirling around in my crazy ass head all the time, all this negativity, and I have to remind myself that that is not reality, and it's like, and that takes like effort and intention and work for me to remind myself of that, continually all the time. It never stops.
Having that awareness is super important, but super difficult to get to that point to have that awareness.
Yeah. And when I don't do that, I find myself in these like spirals of negativity and anger. And I'm like analyzing anybody that comes across my path and like looking at what I don't like about them. And I'm like constantly irritated, and I have every reason to believe that that's like happening with everybody else too. And so we're constantly living in this state of like irritation, and and with everybody, I'm not setting myself apart from that. I am part of it. I struggle with this, and I feel like everybody goes through waves and phases where they're, have a clearer mind and balanced, and then phases in life or times when we're in that constant state of irritation. And I certainly fall into that. And I find that I am doing my best when I am communing with nature, when I am taking the time and intentionally stopping myself to trip out on how the fuck a leaf works, to feel the sun on my face, to relish in the cold water rushing over my face as I dive under a wave, to lay in the dirt. Seriously, I'll go in my backyard and just lay on the ground. Just get on my chair and lay in the grass. I mean, I did that as a kid and stuff like that, but as an adult, it's something that I have to like really stop myself to go do. And the story that I told when I was during the keynote the other night when I was on my ride is I fell, I flipped over and it sucked. And after I got my bike, right, flip back over and back in position, I stopped myself right when I was about to climb back into it and took the opportunity because I was sitting on the ground, which doesn't happen all that often. And I took my glove off and I just like held my hand on the ground. And, if I'm going to be honest, like after like 10, 15 seconds, I was like ready to go. I was like, okay, like, no. And I had to stop myself. You do this for like a full minimum 60 seconds. I just held my hand there and breathed, took some deep breaths. And that day was, one of those days where the state of irritation was definitely heightened, and I can say with confidence that touching the ground for that 60 seconds completely changed my day, my state of mind, and quieted all that chatter swirling around in my head. And for me, experientially, when all that is quieted, I'm able to more enjoy the little things. Like, I forget. Like, I remember times where, like, it's raining out and I'm sipping of a cup of coffee and I can't imagine, like, anything better, And I'm like, where have those moments gone? Where the coffee tastes so fucking good, I can't stand it. Or, like, that beer at the end of the ride that day. It just, like every sip, I was like, oh, And I feel like for me, I know for me, when I'm in that quieter state of mind, that those little things, I'm able to enjoy those little things. And then I think, like, if we're in a quieted state of mind more often and enjoying those little things, I mean, that's because we're present, the way that cup of coffee tastes is like I'm able to experience it at a deeper level and understand it because I have more bandwidth in my mind, because all that shit is not there. That is always there. And then if we're present and like enjoying the little things in life, then when there's another person in front of us, what then happens with our ability to pay attention to them and be curious about their mind and how they think? Like, to be curious about another person's mind, to me, is like the ultimate. And I think that is where we, as a society in general, are not at, And I think, like, for me, when I see all this, like, just hate and division happening, and this constant state of irritation that people are at because, you know, somebody's different or something's different. And I'm not separating myself from that. Let me be clear. Like that is definitely my natural inclination, you know? But when I take this time to like spend with nature and my mind is quieted and I'm enjoying the little things, I find that I'm like curious and empathetic, when there's another person in front of me, and I'm like, whoa, wait, how do you think what? Oh, whoa, like where's that come from? Why? Like there's that. And instead of this like instinctual, like, just resistance that I constantly feel. So when it comes to having a relationship with nature and eco-psychology, like I can't think of anything that is more important, especially given the state of our world, than people having a relationship with nature. But the big but is safely, because that's where I've kind of run into trouble, and why the On Pavement project is, I've really gotten into some precarious situations trying to have a relationship with nature because I don't have the luxury of being able to walk back to the trailhead when shit hits the fan. And information is a really big part of that. And infrastructure is a really big part of that. And so that's why the project is, I personally, selfishly, want to be able to have a relationship with nature safely, and just be out on the trail. But I hope that my efforts can like leave something in place that is in place like long after I'm gone, you know?
Yeah, I do. Here's a good one. We're going to go back to Matthew McConaughey.
McConaughey.
He had a book came out in, I think it was late 2020. I found it in early to mid 20. I found it in February or March of 2021, February of 2021, called Green Lights. It's a good book. So if anybody wants a good, and I actually recommend, don't read the book. Listen to that book, because he is the narrator.
Oh, he narrates it? Okay, cool.
So it's like even better on audio because it's him and he's telling his stories in Green Lights. But the biggest thing that I took away from that book is he has a point in there where he says the intersection, like the intersection, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't know the exact quote, but the intersection of greatness is that intersection between selfishness and selflessness. And that's exactly what you just described with the On Pavement project, because
I see. Okay.
I got into trail building and trail advocacy for a selfish reason. Like when I go weed whack trails to make sure they're clear, so I enjoy them more. But it's also that everyone else reaps that same benefit. You know, they get to enjoy that same, like people. Most trail builders I know, and maybe not now because there's just so many more people coming in trail building, but a lot of people started out with trail building for their own selfish purposes because they wanted a better place to go enjoy nature, whether it's hiking, mountain biking, horseback riding, whatever. I will say most of them are mountain bikers though, because that's your big group of pushing trail building.
Yep.
So I will say that, but
no demographic funds like
no
trail development and trail upkeep and maintenance more than mountain biking. Is that true? That's what I've heard.
I would really love for somebody to tell me something.
My college roommate just texted me. That's hilarious. What the heck?
Yeah. But yeah, so the intersection, the perfect intersection is that intersection of selflessness and selfishness, where what you're doing is for yourself, but it's also greatly impacting the world in such a positive way.
That makes sense. I'm going to download that book.
Oh, it's hilarious, dude.
I'm gonna
so funny. Like
he's out there, right?
He's
out there. No,
I could not imagine anyone else narrating that book and telling, because you know how he got that book, right? Or how it came to be. It's because he's like journaled like almost every day of his whole life, and he's like kept him in.
I did hear him say that,
and he's like kept him in a.
I listened to him. I think it was on Rogan.
Shit ton of podcasts. So like he went on like this full podcast tour for Green Lights, and like literally, and I've listened to I don't know how many of them, because I found I mean, I've listened podcasts, as we've talked about, for me personally, have been like a point of therapy. Like,
Yep.
So, I found out that some stuff went south in my life with me and my now ex-wife. And I'm going to paraphrase because I'll make it short because I could make it long, but I'm not going to make it long. Quickly decided that I needed to disappear.
Gotcha.
I needed to go somewhere else. And the reason why I needed to disappear was so I could get my head on straight, so I could create a clear path forward in life for my two daughters. Because I have a 6-year-old and 8-year-old daughter. They're 6 and 8 now. They were 7 and 5 then. 7 and 4, 7 and 5. So the point is that like I knew that stuff was drastically changing in my life, and there was nothing I could do about it except for make sure I could get myself in a good place to positively move forward. So I literally, without telling pretty much anybody, dropped my kids off at school, packed up my truck, and right before that, I have a good friend that lives in Albuquerque. Texted him, said, "Hey, this is what's going on. Like, I need a place to crash, far away from home." Drove to Albuquerque. He was just getting into mountain biking. This was in February of 2021. I literally looked at the weather map of the United States and was like, okay, where can I go to ride my mountain bike right now? Because literally everything from where I am in Wisconsin to Texas is frozen, including all of their water pipes.
Yep.
Remember that last February?
I wasn't here, but I saw everyone's posts about it.
Yeah, I mean, literally, it was below zero to like Mexico, and so I'm like, okay, where can I go ride my mountain bike? Because I need to go ride my mountain bike. I could go to Florida or I could go to the Southwest. I think most people would choose the Southwest. I'm not knocking Florida, not judging Florida.
Dude, the Southwest, like New Mexico and Arizona and everything. That's where, dude.
Yeah,
that's
so I went to Albuquerque, spent a couple days at his place to get my head on straight, and then I was only, I think, 6 hours from Sedona at that point. And then
6 hours. Albuquerque, 6 hours from Sedona.
Yeah,
five and a half even.
Yeah, so I then booked an Airbnb quick in Sedona. Left his place after a couple days. Spent a couple days in Sedona. Did not know. Knew Sedona was really good for mountain biking. Didn't know I was going into like the vortex and everything else that they have, their capital of the world. Which was perfect because I really truly needed to find what I was going to do next, and had an amazing couple days in Sedona. Turned right back around and drove home. And the point of this story is I had a lot of time driving, and that's when I found out about Green Lights and Matthew McConaughey. And that book I needed that book at that time in my life, and him narrating it is like, it's the best. Like, he's so good at
he's out there.
He's so good. His voice is so good at telling his own. I mean, they're his life stories, and I'm not going to tell you any of his life stories, but there's going to be some stuff in there.
I'm going to listen. I'm going to start it on Monday.
That you're going to be like, what just happened here? Cause it's crazy. There's some crazy shit that happened in his life.
I bet, he definitely seems like he's seen some stuff.
So he does a really good job. And sounds like you've already listened to some of the podcasts that he's been on. I would definitely recommend listening to some of his podcasts too. He doesn't have his own, but like he was on other people's, like he was on Lance Armstrong's, Joe Rogan's, pretty much any.
I heard him on Rogan.
And it was good. Actually, Lance Armstrong was good too, because him and Lance Armstrong are good buddies. And so Lance already knew, like he knew some questions to ask, like,
gotcha.
Ahead of the game. So.
Dude, what's crazy about that story is I had a time in my life where I disappeared for a while too. And guess where I disappeared to?
Sedona, Arizona?
Yep. Isn't that crazy? That's when you were saying that, I was like, oh shit. Yeah, I disappeared. When I was there, they had a freak. I was camping and they had a freak snowstorm, and it snowed a foot. And it hadn't snowed like that much. Someone told me like 50 or 60 years.
I did want to recreate that last month. I was going to recreate that, and I had the first week of March open on my schedule. Ex-wife's watching the kids. We're really amicable now. Like, things are all good. Like, we know we have to co-parent in a really good positive way. So things are, I don't think honestly don't think they could be better than they are. Like, and I truly believe that. But I was watching the weather again, and I was either going to go to the southeast, Pisgah area / just south of Knoxville, to a place called V Hollow, or I was going to go to Sedona, which happened to be the same weekend as Sedona Bike Fest.
I was there.
And quite honestly, I didn't really want to go to Bike Fest because I didn't want to be around a ton of people.
Got you.
You know?
It rained.
And I'm getting there. And I decided last minute, like, I know it's a real crapshoot to go to the Appalachian Mountains in early March because it could very easily snow there too. And they'd been getting snow throughout the winter, you know, and so I decided, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the Appalachians. It's 14 hours from my place to Pisgah. If I drive to Sedona, it's 24 hours, literally door to door, because I've done it. I stopped only for gas and to use the bathroom.
You didn't sleep?
Straight through.
Oh, you're gnarly. Like 15 hours is my max.
Yeah,
You're
like
24?
I literally, like, I was,
Oh,
well, this
man.
is back, this is in 2021 when I was kind of on my mission. And I was on, going back to that Sedona trip, I was on Facebook Messenger video chatting with my 7-year-old daughter at the time. They didn't know where I was. They know now, but they didn't know at that point where I was. And they didn't know I was also going to be coming home that day, essentially. And I hung up the phone with her at around 7:30 a.m. Central Time, which was 6:30 in Arizona. And I literally was driving up the road to my house the next day at 7:30 a.m. As at the time, which things were really gnarly at this point.
Damn.
Like nobody knew where I was going. And my ex-wife was driving down. We live in a dead end road on a really steep hill. My ex-wife was driving down the road with the kids in the car to take them to school as I'm driving up. She didn't know I was coming home.
6:30 a.m.
7:30 a.m. 7:30 a.m.
Oh, 7:30 a.m.
Yeah, because of the time
exactly
zone.
24 hours.
Yeah, exactly 24 hours. So like, I waved at her like nothing had happened, and like the glare that I got was like, blinders on, I don't see you.
Oh.
Because she had no idea what to expect.
Oh, what a trip. What
And
a
like
trippy
literally
experience.
like I walked in the house. The house is just a disaster. I walked in the house. It's super messy. And I was like, great, I got to clean. About 2 or 3 hours later, I texted her. I'm like, hey, you want to go to lunch? She's like,
Who are you?
there's more to the story that I don't need to share on a podcast, but it was really gnarly at that point. But yeah, so back to Pisgah and just south in Knoxville, Valhalla. Like, okay, do I go to Sedona or do I go to the southeast and roll the dice? If I go to Sedona, it's an extra 10 hours of driving each direction. And so it's literally an extra day on either end of not riding a bike.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm like, I'm gonna roll the dice. I'm going to the southeast. It was 75 and sunny with not a cloud in the sky the entire time I was there. And talking about how fortunate I felt just for that. Like the next week it snowed there. And the next week was the Tennessee National at Windrock, and it was so gnarly they canceled the race. And so I
You scored.
Like it was so, and I'm kind of paying attention to what's going on in Sedona weather-wise. I'm like, holy shit! Like I don't think I could have made a better
freezing, dude.
decision.
It was freezing. I woke up to a dusting of snow.
Yeah, but still not the same weather that I was experiencing. Like the opposite.
That's awesome. You made the right choice.
That was an incredible choice. So fortunate.
Sedona is a special place, though. It is. Like people talk about the vortexes and the spirituality of the place, and I was like, okay, whatever, crystals, whatever.
Yeah.
But I realize what that is when I leave Sedona. Like you don't feel being balanced. Balance is a weightless thing. It's not a feeling. You feel nothing, And then when I leave Sedona and I feel the weight of the world on my shoulders after I leave, I'm like, oh, that's what people mean about Sedona. It's a really interesting place like that for me and what I've experienced there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna go a deep dive, even though we're 3 hours into unpavement.
Okay.
What that means and what
deep dive or just like a cursory,
like what unpavement is, what it means to you, but what it actually means to everybody else, and how and the
battery
and the impacts that unpavement has, not only for you but for everyone else that can benefit from the unpavement.
Well, well, one, it's weird to have direction and purpose. I've lived my I've lived my life like as a ping pong ball, like just a subject of my environment, you know. And for the first time in my life, which is crazy to say, as a 45-year-old man, that for the first time, I have clear direction and purpose. That's a big deal, just for me waking up in the morning, you know. Um, and I mean, how it came about, we've kind of already talked about, you know. Um, there's a need, and so I just, you know, I started documenting my trail experiences. You know, started working with Trail Forks, came up with a rating system. Um, and it's just kind of been one foot in front of the other. That's kind of how it's all come about. The YouTube channel's been tough. It's I'm ready for it to evolve. I'm ready for it to not be about mountain biking. So and I've had like a split audience where I've got the people that want the trail information, and then I've got people that want to either be inspired or laugh or or be entertained. You know, they want the edited videos, you know, with the music and you know, more of me talking and
They
more.
want you, but Rich Drew.
Yeah, they you know, and those people are mostly people that, you know me and just, you know, are want to know what's going on in my life, you know.
Yeah.
So I have a very split audience, and the channel has not grown, I believe, because of that. Um, so I started a new channel that's just the raw trail videos, and that's the videos where and so I'll get comments and negative comments, you know,
Really?
from both sides. Yeah, it's weird. I'll get people say like less you, more trail, or like we don't need the music, we just want to see the trail, or, you know, stuff like that. And it's not necessarily negative. It's just not what I would want. So, you know, I have to check myself. I'm like, oh, you know, the person's just telling me what they want, you know. So, and then even on the other hand, I'll get people saying, "Wow, you can see the sunset right behind you. Look at that."
Oh, it's almost like the stickers.
Right? um,
Thank you, Gary Vernon.
and on the other hand, I'll get comments of people saying, less trail, more you, you know? And it's like, oh, what the hell do I do? So I now that I've split the channel and I've got the raw trail video uh, channel, and then now my channel, which I want, it needs to be more about, you know, what's going on in my life, the lifestyle that I'm living, you know, which I live a fucking incredible life, man. Um, and I want to share that with people. I want to show that to people, and everything in between is what's important. Um, how I load and unload my bike or my surfboard, or, you know, how I set up camp and break down camp, and beers with my friends, and the struggles of what it takes to do all this from a wheelchair, you know. It's all really important. And like, you know, it's more like tours of the van, what I eat, you know, these types of details that I don't know how to film. I'm not practiced in filming that stuff. I'm practiced in filming my my rides, you know. And now I'm realizing, oh shit, like I don't know how to do this. You know, I'm really bad at filming myself doing stuff. And um I I know I could be good at it. I'm just not in the practice of it. So now I'm in this like transition phase where I'm like, okay, I need to start figuring out and get in the habit of filming myself doing things, you know, and get over all the negative chatter of, you know, telling myself, you know, how terrible of a person I am for doing all that, you know. So I've got that hurdle to get through and that layer of molasses, and then um so I'm in this interesting phase with the Unpavement project and the YouTube channel, because I want it to be, to me, the Unpavement is a movement of all of us, wheelchair or not, whatever, wherever we're at in life, off the pavement and, into nature. And I believe that I can really, and this is definitely a painful thing for me to say. Like, I know that I've been charged with this for my life's purpose. Not that I'm special or anything like that, but because I'm paralyzed, I can go ride my bike and live this lifestyle and people are stoked on it. I don't want that. I want to be anonymous, I'm definitely living like I was shared the other night, like being in a wheelchair fucking sucks, and I even said before I was paralyzed that my worst nightmare was to be paralyzed. So in that respect, although everything I've learned is very doable and we can rise from much greater depths than we think we're capable of, for all intents and purposes, I'm living my worst nightmare. And to say that that is a gift in that I can just do what I want to do selfishly, and people are just like, people send me messages how like it's changed their life, and so I'm like, okay, well then that's what I guess I need to do with my life, if I'm going to live this lifestyle, like I need to share it with people. And I know that I can help people like out of their ruts, the same ruts that I'm in every day, I know I can. And so that's kind of where the unpavement is now is, I don't want, it's the first word that came to mind was burden, but it's not burden. It's the, calling is definitely not the word. It's definitely not a word I want to use. But I have this hand to play, and I'm like at a crossroads with it where I feel like the scales are really about to tip. And what I need to do is like, is make the decision to like just like accept myself for who I am and like turn the camera back on, because I've turned it off for a time now. I've barely been pumping out any videos. Turn the camera back on and fucking do it, and just forget like all the negative thoughts that are swirling around. And I know this is what I need to do.
I've got a couple thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Two totally different thoughts. So. I've shared this before too, but one of my, and I do not know who quoted this or where I got this quote from a podcast, but I don't know who to credit for this. But like, what I like to say is like what we're doing and like what you're doing, especially with like you just said, like, I don't know how to film myself, right? Like us living, and this goes back to, earlier in the conversation, but us living our life on the edge of incompetency is like where we need to be.
Yeah.
Like literally, like,
yeah.
There's so many things that I've done in like podcasting. I don't know how to podcast. Like, well, how do you do it? Well, go figure it out. Go watch a YouTube video and learn something or whatever. But like literally living on the edge of incompetency, and like just on that edge of you don't know what to do, but you have that you're driven to figure that out. Which goes back to, if your purpose in life is too easy, you probably aren't living it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's living on the edge of incompetency is there's so many things. I mean, you can take that so many different directions, but it's really where it is. The other thing that I thought of, this is more specific to YouTube. I don't know if you've seen BKXC or Brian Kennedy.
Yeah, I follow Brian.
Like that guy, he's a good example of like, he does what you were just talking about. And I don't know, and I would be honest with you, I don't know how he so naturally turns the camera on himself, because I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah.
But he's pretty good at it. he's good enough to where he's gotten to where he is now, where he made a career out of it, and
He's doing good.
he's doing good, and in a nutshell, and I know people that have listened to this podcast know who Brian Kennedy is because I've had him on the podcast twice.
No way.
Yeah,
That's cool.
I've
emailed with him.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah,
he's really good. He spent like 5 or 6 weeks here last spring, like literally trying to ride all the stuff in this region, and I don't even know if that's long enough.
Oh, that's right, because he's on his like tour. Yeah.
Well, 2 years ago he was on his 50-state shred.
50-state shred.
And that's where I met him the first time, because his stop on the 50-state shred for the state of Wisconsin was La Crosse.
Okay.
So him and myself and another Josh.
I might have seen that video.
Rode La Crosse, Wisconsin.
I think I saw that video.
Yeah. He's
funny.
Yeah, he stopped there, and we did a podcast interview then when he was on his 50-state shred. But then last spring, he did like 5 or 6 weeks of rent. He rented an Airbnb and base camped out of Bentonville and went and rode all the stuff around here, and then did a Southern Enduro series race at Passion Play, and did that as part of his thing. But my point is that he's like, people watch what he's doing, and some of his videos are just of his van. He'll do like he did a video review on like the things that he's learned about what features to have in his van and what is just stupid to have, and like with what he thought would be good. And there's people watching that stuff. A lot of people watching that stuff because people want to know what to do to their van.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so people want to know what you're doing.
Yep.
And because it'll help them maybe get off that edge of incompetency just a little bit to learn how to.
I have to remember that to motivate. Well, I think, the problem that I definitely have is because he does that full time.
Which is like literally full time.
I work full time. I have actually multiple full-time jobs.
Yeah. That is a huge, like when you, it is his job. Like he video edits all the time. And I mean, it's tough
with the bike sales. I'm not complaining. I'm definitely winning, and I make really good money doing these things. And that, enables me to live my lifestyle. So the bike sales, the trail consulting,
which is kind of on pavement in itself.
Yeah. And speaking and then managing those things, and then managing my bike, it is a lot of work. That's a day a week, taking care of the bike, which I really enjoy doing. It's one of my favorite things to do, like crack a couple beers and work on my bike and have football in the background. I fucking love it. But all I have to say is like I compare myself to the other YouTubers and their ability to pump out videos and quality video, and that's tough to do with the amount of time that I have left over after all those other things. Usually in that time I'm tired. The last thing I want to do is like turn the camera on and be motivated for people, when I'm tired. So that's a tough thing. I would like to be able to transition to figure it out where it's not so much work to make a video and stuff, and it's like a lot faster and easier. But to make a video, to edit a video for me is like 10 hours.
That's where I was just gonna go. Turning the camera on, it's one thing. It's the
editing. Post. Yeah, the post is so the actual filming and stuff. I want to figure that out. Okay, because logistics wise, like when you have 2 less limbs to utilize, when it comes to well, let me say it this way: there's a lot of logistics involved as an adaptive athlete, and then you add the layer of cameras to it. That's a whole other layer. And usually it's just enough for me to like get out and get my bike out and get my bike ready and get to the trail. And then, if I'm not late, I fucking won, and then like, oh, wait a second. And then I want to add the layer of cameras and stuff to whatever I'm doing. It's tough. I need to figure, I really need to figure, not I need to, I want to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, and to take that one step further, like when I go ride, like I just tune out. Like you'd probably, I'm never going to say never, but you'll probably never see me you'll never see me with a a GoPro camera. I'm not one, I rarely take pictures.
What if you're following me and filming me?
Well, that's a different story. I mean, I will say the one time, and I told you this earlier, the one time I've had a GoPro camera on me, I was following the Rich Drew.
The Rich Drew, the one and only Rich Drew.
But it's funny, you like even like you take the difference of Rich Drew and his brother Rob. Like Rob doesn't want to have cameras on him.
No.
He just wants to go out and ride.
Yeah.
And so they're but backing that up, what you're doing does serve a legit purpose. With the unpavement.
That's what I have to remind myself of.
With the unpavement project. And it's not just for adaptive athletes. It's for everybody, because I don't care what anybody says. Like, good trail is good trail. Good trail for you is good trail for me.
Yep.
We can talk about that.
Yeah. I think, well, I'm like Rob, where I don't want to have the cameras.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to that decision to charge the batteries the night before or not, and I'm like, I don't want to deal, and I just don't. Or like, I don't want to grab the camera. I have to remind myself of what you just said. Like, it's not fucking about me. It's not about me. And anybody that thinks that I think it is, unsubscribe.
Yeah.
They don't know me.
Apparently, this isn't for you.
Yeah, but I have to remind myself of exactly that. Like, when I make that decision, when it comes to that point, that decision, plug in the batteries or grab the camera, I want to have program my mind so that the reminder pops up, the pop-up window comes up. I'm very tactical in the way like my mind works. You can probably relate with that, I think. The pop-up comes up like, it's not fucking about you, dude. Like, you need to do this for other people. Plug in the batteries. That's kind of what I'm charged with and where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
With the unpavement project.
Yeah, and it's a good thing. Like, everybody, that's going to be in the show notes. The link for the unpavement project will be in the show notes. But let's talk about the technical aspects of it. We didn't go too deep on your signing, like what that actually means. You went deeper.
My signing?
The signing of trails and what you do on trail forks to what that actually means. So when you go to a trail system that you don't have to have a friend or a couple friends with you, that you can do a continuous loop to get through that.
Yep. So yeah, the whole like trail documentation process, the trail,
which is one of your jobs
process. Yes. I get paid for it, and I also do it for free, on my own, like when I want to document an area. And so, I developed a rating system to rate trails, and the purpose that it serves is for two very different types of riders. With adaptive riders, there is a hard line down the middle of two user groups. And either user group can cross that line at any time, but that line is riders with support and riders without. What I can ride with you is a lot more than what I can ride without somebody. So I have a support rider. I can get through so much more. And so the rating system, when I'm traveling or by myself, or I'm riding an area that I'm unfamiliar with, the information that I need that is useful is, where can I ride safely by myself? And then when I'm with somebody, the information that I need is basically what trails are going to be too much work for us. What is the best mountain biking experience? Where my friend's not going to have to, maybe they'll, need to spot me here and there, but it's not going to be, so much that it's not
every
fun.
5 minutes,
exactly, where they might as well just be walking. So that's kind of what the rating system does, is answers those questions. And when I'm riding an area, I'm riding with the very broad spectrum of adaptive riders in mind. I'm not just riding it as myself. Can I do this or not? I'm riding it with a whole, very broad range of ability levels, disability levels, and all different types of equipment, and with all that in mind, of what are most of those riders going to experience on this trail. Not all, because there's some riders in the far extremes of the rider spectrum that know to shift things over for them. They're an outlier. So what is so I kind of rate trails, not kind of, I do rate trails on a curve. so to speak, with the average rider in mind. And hopefully over time. Now, a lot of work that I have done is all mostly in the Southwest region, California, Arizona, Colorado, Utah. And the goal is to train other riders, other adaptive riders, in the trail documentation process, so that other riders can be doing this in their respective areas. And then the goal is big data over time. Like, we're in this for the long game, where one ride, one trail at a time, this information is put into Trailforks and soon other trail information resources, so that adaptive riders can use these resources like anybody else and know where they can go safely. What I try to do is identify, like, spend time in an area and identify a route. And I try to find a loop of significant mileage, because that's what most people are going to do. They're just going to go on Trailforks and look for a recommended route and ride that, They're not going to look at all the fine details of a trail. So if you're alone, here's a route you can do. If you're with somebody, here's a good route. And so that's what I try to spend time with an area and get to know it, because that takes time to get to know an area, to figure out the best route possible. And I think that's how we can serve, like, the majority. And then also the uncut video. Like, most people are, if they're trying to find out if they can ride a trail or not, are just going to type it into YouTube. And so I'm trying to get just more and more of just raw trail videos on YouTube, so the person can type in, adaptive or aMTB along with the trail name and land on those videos and be able to see adaptive bike go down the trail.
Yeah, and that kind of reminds me of something that I wish it would have taken off, but it didn't. And I don't know where these people are and what they're doing. I know where they are. They're probably in the UP. But Copper Harbor's trail system has what's called Trail Genius. And what Trail Genius is, it's like YouTube video mixed with Trailforks on one screen.
And Trailforks has videos on the trail pages
of like a full entire loop, like that whole entire front to end. So it shows so what it is like, you have the map in the one corner, the person with a helmet cam or handlebar cam or whatever,
okay,
like in another corner, and then actually the elevation, so a profile of it also, of that trail. So you can, like, I'm a geek when it comes to certain things. And back when I really was focusing on some cross country racing, like the Fat Tire Festival at Copper Harbor, Trails Fest, I would go on to Trail Genius and, like, really get to know that trail or those trails that were part of that race.
Got you.
So it's kind of like what the EWS racers do and, like, enduro racers do now, with, like, they'll go out and video their runs with the GoPro, and then they'll go back home and like, analyze it for a racing perspective. You know what I mean? But I
think it's a little different, because Trailforks is all user videos.
Correct. Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah, I think the problem with Trail Genius was it was a couple of guys that thought of this, and how do a couple guys like document
There's a lot of trails out there.
Thankfully.
Thankfully. Yeah. But I think that's probably why it did not take off, and resources like Trailforks have, is because we're all about, this is about big data here, because there are so many trails and there's so many rocks and ruts and idiosyncrasies with these trails that
features.
Okay, so now we're on black screen with YouTube. The last battery has officially died.
And that one went 53 minutes.
Okay, so that's pretty good. 1 hour. That's pretty good.
So we're 3 hours and 23 minutes into this for real recording.
Wow.
Or audio recording, I should say. But yeah, so I'm an admin on Trailforks for my region, so I get it, and I push. There's other mapping apps out there, but I personally push Trailforks more than any other app, because as a user and an admin, I think it's the easiest system to use.
I agree.
Of all the stuff out there, like if we, like, for example, when we had the last trail system we had built in La Crosse is about 6 miles of trail. Like, I had all that GPS'd and loaded into Trailforks and not open to the public before it opened. And, like, the day it opened was the day I unhid everything. And so it was live on Trailforks.
That's awesome.
The day it was live.
I like that.
for the public to see and use, you know. And and having like I've tried to work with MTB project and it was like impossible.
Oh, I originally contacted MTB Project. When I first started out, I was first talking with it. I tell the story that I called up Trail Forks, but that's not true. I called up MTB Project, and they just went through like some serious attrition like right after that. So everything that we were starting, just like the ball got dropped. And then I was actually at Sedona Mountain Bike Festival, and I was talking with this local guy, and he told me about Trail Forks. He's like, "Oh, Trail Forks was way better." No, I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Oh yeah, like basically all the cool kids are using Trail Forks
Because they can use it.
because they can use it." Exactly. And so then I called up Trail Forks, and you know, the rest is history. Do you ever just crackhead out all night long, like just like cleaning shit up in there?
I have. You moving points to make sure like a radius of a turn is like maybe the actual radius of the corner. Like it's not just like a V.
I love it.
Like just moving points. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anything like just cleaning shit up, like correcting the GPS points,
Like making sure they actually connect to the next trail so you can make the route.
little things like that.
Yeah.
Oh my god! For some reason I fucking love doing that. I'll get in. Well, not for some reason. I know why. I can't, like, for me to pick up a shovel and go do trail work isn't really in the cards, you know? So like I get to like perform trail work online.
But if you did,
Yeah.
you'd be that perfectionist out there shaping.
I think I would be. I think I'd be a perfectionist with it. I definitely with the computer and with the trails online. Oh my god, I love like just crackheading out all night, just getting in there. Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, I geek out on that in my real life. I say my real life because in my career, I work. No, this is no secret to anybody. I work full time for Wisconsin DOT, and in the role that I'm in right now, it's a plant production coordinator, and I'll get engineers that are like, "We need to get this project out," and I'll look at their documents, the drafting, and I'm like, "Oh, this is freaking horrible." Like all this stuff is on
I
wrong
can't
layers. Like
imagine.
from an aesthetic standpoint, I'm like, and I got taught by a guy because I've been working for DOT. I started at DOT when I was 17, and then came back in the summers when I was in college and still worked there, and then got a job there after college. So I did not go to school for civil engineering. It's just what I ended up falling into as a life career. But the guy that was teaching me back even in high school was like super anal about the direction of his leaders and not having the right angles on the leader lines pointing to whatever it is pointing to on the plan. Like it was super anal. Like
I'd be freaking out.
You know, and so I can totally relate to like you go in, you download your GPS file or however you got it in there, and you're like, but it goes a little bit to the right over here, which on an iPhone or whatever, or Garmin or whatever you're looking at, that person's never going to notice that.
Right.
But in your head, you're like, it needs to be right.
And like it doesn't, and for routing, like this trail doesn't touch it and it needs to, or like this trail is like doesn't make sense. This, you know, if something doesn't make sense exactly right, like, and then you gotta like redraw it and oh yeah.
Well, then connecting it to roads, like if you're gonna interconnect because not all trail systems are completely enclosed within themselves. There's on road or gravel connectors.
Yep.
You know, and making sure so you can make a route on trail forks that they all connect, because if that is just a hair off,
it won't connect.
It won't connect.
Yeah, and when someone's creating routes, it won't work right, and functionality isn't. It needs to be right.
Yeah.
I love doing that, man.
Yeah.
Like those are some really fun nights. I'll be drinking and like just geeking out on trails. Oh, it's so fun. It's so fun. And then like the sun will be coming up. I'm like, oh man, I was cleaning up trails and trail forks all night.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, I don't know. We've covered a lot. We're 3 hours and 28 minutes into this, but at the same time, I do want you to close with something inspirational. And not because you're any different than anybody else, because I have everybody close with something. And like, I really like, actually, we're going to back up. There's another thing that there's two other things that I always ask. So maybe we'll go a little bit longer. Do you have, and I know you'll talk about this, but do you have a famous failure?
Oh my God.
And it doesn't have to be famous. I say this in the sense that it doesn't have to be famous as like, oh, I got news or something. Like in your mind, is there something
Oh,
that
no.
you did that you learned from, that you took that knowledge from and then did differently in life? Like that kind of failure, like an aha moment, like that I shouldn't have done that way.
There's a lot.
Everybody that's successful has a lot.
There's a lot. Yeah, I've fucked up a lot. Man, well, the first thing that comes to mind, and that's relates to the conversation, is there was one time I was going for a ride, and I did not look at the weather beforehand, and it turned into an ultimate fail. Ultimate fail, man. I actually it started to rain pretty much right when I started my ride, and I continued to go. I was in a very negative state of mind. I just like
Blinders on, got to get this done.
I'm blinders on, and I went through all the effort to get here. I'm gonna fucking ride, and that sprinkle quickly turned to a downpour. And as I passed through a water crossing, I snapped my chain, and so I got to get off the bike and fix the chain. I'm sitting in about like 6-8 inches of water, and I'm trying to work on my chain and fix it, and I hear a noise, and I look up, and the bank collapses, and all this water broke loose, and I was in like basically a flash flood situation.
So you were surfing.
Yeah, I was in this creek.
Yeah.
That just all of a sudden I was in neck deep water. My bike is completely submerged. My bike is underwater, and the bank is like 3 feet high. So imagine being a paraplegic, getting your 50, 60-pound bike up a 3-foot bank from underwater, basically. I have my phone in my pocket. Luckily, is like the first iPhone that was waterproof. Luckily, because I finally got out of there. I got my chain fixed, and that's like skipping over like an hour of just grueling endeavor. And yeah, this was in San Diego, and it's just like this thick clay, and so like every few yards I had to stop and clean out my drivetrain because it would just seize up.
I can relate, but I couldn't imagine.
It was seizing and seizing and seizing, and luckily I had my phone, and luckily I was able to call for help. But it was a totally fucked situation. It was totally terrible, and I just a bad steward, man. Just a bad steward. And there's been so many times, if I would just check the weather and been responsible, and then there's so many times I've put complete strangers, in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, you were showing it on your video.
Yeah.
Like runner.
Yeah.
Like you're stuck.
And that guy was fine.
Yeah. You said he's
time,
like, that guy was super cool. You said it right on the video. You're like, thank you. Like this is.
But who knows, if someone's uncomfortable or not. I think if I was in a situation where I needed to help somebody, and I was uncomfortable, I would probably not let them know,
Correct.
So maybe they were. And actually there was one time, I crashed on my like beach cruiser bike and was all bloody. And this was like in the height of COVID, and I was on the ground bloody.
San Diego?
I didn't have a shirt on. I was sweaty, and I couldn't get back on my bike. I hadn't done anything wrong. I didn't like fail anything, but I crashed, but I just felt terrible that in the height of COVID, like a guy had to like grab me sweaty, get my blood on him. Not that you can transfer COVID through blood, but I put a stranger in a very uncomfortable situation, and
you
that's
weren't
just
social distancing.
not at all. The exact opposite. So all that to say, like, yeah, I've learned the hard way and failed so many times to make sure like you know, maintenance on the bike is so much more important, you know, because if it breaks, I'm screwed. Taking care of my bike, carrying everything that I can think of, any type of contingency with me. And look at the frickin' weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my second thing that I always ask people on this podcast, because this podcast is about communities and trails, is what, and we're in, as I say this, as we're sitting in Bentonville, Arkansas, mountain bike capital of the world.
Yeah.
TM, because they trademarked it.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
you didn't know that?
No, I didn't.
That was the press release initially, like that.
Wow, I did not know that.
It's marketing.
Yeah.
What, in your opinion, makes a great trail community?
Ooh, great question. What makes a great trail community? Man, that is a great question, because there's so many different things. Like, you know, the thoughts that come to mind are, you know, people that care about each other, you know, people that take care of the trails.
Great restaurants.
Beer.
Yeah. Like it's a comprehensive thing for a lot of people.
Well, you know, being someone who, you know, doesn't have close family, like, it really means a lot to me to feel supported. And I have definitely discovered that here. I feel very supported here. Like, when I'm doubting myself, like, I know that, like, I'm wanted. People want me here, you know, and that I'm valued here. And I mean, not just in a trails community, but in any community, that's probably the most important thing for me personally, is that, you know, I feel like valued and supported. So I'm going to say that to answer your question. I think the most important thing is that people, like, let everybody else know that they're valued and supported.
Yeah, that's incredible. It is. It's something I've taken a lot more seriously in the last year personally. You know, like, I have a great girlfriend now who she started this with us, and she was doing it. She's a business owner, small business owner, and she does it with her staff too. But every morning we wake up in separate houses, separate beds. Not always, but
well,
we wake every morning. Like, the first thing, or one of the first things we do to start out that day, is we text each other gratefulness. 3 things you're grateful for.
Oh.
And I thought of this actually a while ago during this conversation. Some of it's living in the past. Some of it, and as when you're talking about being present, some of it's living in the past. Some of it's living in the future, because you could be grateful for, like, a great opportunity you had yesterday, or you could be grateful for what's coming up,
right.
You know,
right.
Whatever. But for me personally, like, some of the things that you know, like, I let my dogs out in the morning and I walk outside and I look out and see the sunrise, and you're present with that moment, just like you in the dirt, and explaining that relationship with dirt. Like, being present is such a more important thing that we take, like, that negative chatter, like, that's not living in the present, right?
No, it's not real. It's not reality.
It's not real, and it's not where you are now.
Yeah.
You know, it's what ifs or what did.
Yep.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I've taken that, like, every day, every morning, regardless of what is going on in our lives, we text each other 3 things we're grateful for.
All right.
You know, and that's, you know, so having, and I'm getting back to that support and having that community around you. Like, I appreciate her more than she hears it from me, but I still tell her all the time, like, I appreciate you more than you know, because of that type of stuff that you've brought. I don't know what the right word is, but you brought into my life. You know, and that's that thing, having people around you that know that you're valued, that let you know that you're valued, you know? So.
I like that.
It's good stuff.
It is good stuff. I have to pee.
So do I. For 3 hours and 38 minutes
3
into
beers,
this.
almost 4 hours. Definitely pee time. Thanks so much, man. Let's
yeah.
I think it's a good wrap.
Well, thank you very much, Jeremy P. McGhee.
Right on.
Stop.
Let's do this.